The orbital trade station Vesper crown spun against the velvet backdrop of the void like a jeweled spinning top, a chaotic monument to the new era of imperial peace. Holographic billboards the size of starship hulls flickered in the artificial atmosphere. Vomiting cascades of neon light that advertised everything from synthetic dream stims to colonization shares on worlds that had been scorched earth only a decade ago. Traffic lanes were clogged with haulers, pleasure yachts, and patrol drones, their engines weaving a constant throbbing hum that vibrated through the station's titanium bones. It was a place where credits flowed like water, and morality was just another commodity to be taxed, regulated, and ignored. Down in the lower maintenance sectors, far beneath the glittering spires of the elite promenade, the air smelled of recycled ozone and frying street food. Cade Rylan wiped a smear of grease from his cheek, leaving a dark streak on his pale skin. He stood before a cluttered stall constructed from cannibalized hull plating, his eyes narrowing as he inspected a rusted atmospheric intake valve. Cade was a man sketched in rough lines. His leather flight jacket was a patchwork map of repairs. The elbows reinforced with ballistic weave and the collar worn soft with age. He looked like he belonged to the scrap heaps, tired, sharp-edged, and perpetually dusty. But his hands, currently turning the valve with a surgeon's precision, were steady. "This intake is cracked," Cade said, his voice a low rumble that competed with the screech of a nearby maglev train. "The ceramite lining is fractured. If I install this on my ship, I will be breathing vacuum within 3 jumps." The vendor, a jittery alien with 4 eyes and skin the color of bruised plums, wrung his hands. "It is a genuine military surplus," he insisted, his voice high and reedy. "Very rare, very powerful. For you, only 80 credits." Cade sighed, running his thumb over the hairline fracture. He could see the desperation in the vendor's twitching antennae. The station taxes had gone up again last week. Everyone in the lower sectors was feeling the squeeze of the Empire's heavy hand. Cade knew he could bully the price down to 10 credits, or simply walk away. The part was garbage. He set the valve down gently. "I will give you 50, Cade said. The alien blinked all 4 eyes in rapid succession. 50? But you said it is broken. I can weld the lining." Cade lied smoothly, fishing a cred chip from his pocket. "I enjoy the work. Keeps my hands busy." He transferred the funds. It was a stupid charity, the kind of softness that kept his savings account hovering near zero. But Cade had seen the hunger in the creature's face. He took the useless valve, tucked it under his arm, and turned away before the vendor could thank him. He had barely taken 3 steps when a heavy arm draped around his shoulders, nearly knocking the wind out of him. "You are the worst businessman in the galaxy." "Cade Rylan," a voice crowed in his ear. "I watched that transaction. You paid 50 credits for a paperweight." Cade shrugged the arm off, recognizing the cologne before he saw the face, a cloying mix of synthetic musk and expensive brandy. Jax. Jax was everything Cade was not: polished, loud, and ambitiously amoral. He wore a suit that shimmered with color-shifting silk and a smile that had sold 1,000 bad deals. "It is an investment." Cade grunted, continuing to walk. "It is junk," Jax corrected, falling into step beside him. "But forget the scrap. I have found it. Cade. The big score. The golden ticket." Cade kept walking. "I am not smuggling spice for you again. Jax, I am still picking the smell out of my cargo bay liners." "No smuggling," Jax said, waving a hand dismissively. "Better. Legitimate business. You know the War Relics and Gladiator showcase starts in 1 hour?" Cade stopped, his jaw tightened. "I am not interested in watching slaves fight." "Jax, It is not just fighting, Jack said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. It is an auction, high-end stock, war criminals, ex-commanders, the really dangerous types. The nobility pay fortunes for them. But sometimes the auctioneers bundle the lesser lots. We pool our money, buy a low-tier gladiator, polish them up, and flip them to the asteroid mining guilds for triple the price. It is clean money. There is nothing clean about flesh peddling, Cade said, staring up at a billboard overhead. It showed a stylized image of a gladiator in gold armor, holding a severed head, with the slogan "Civilization Triumphs." Jax rolled his eyes. Look, the war is over. These people, creatures, whatever, they lost. They are property of the state. If we do not buy them, someone worse will. Think of it as a rescue mission if that helps your conscience. We buy them. We sell them to a nice, respectable mining camp. Better than the death pits. Cade looked at his friend. He knew Jax was just chasing credits, but the logic burrowed into Cade's mind like a splinter. The showcase was the Empire's favorite new pastime, parading the defeated heroes of the frontier war, stripping them of dignity, and selling them to the highest bidder. It made Cade sick, and yet he was broke. His ship, the Sunshrike, needed a new coil driver, and his bank account was hemorrhaging credits on useless valves and docking fees. Fine, Cade said. The word tasting like ash. We go, we look. But if I do not like the numbers, I am walking. Jax beamed, clapping him on the back. That is the spirit. You will not regret this, Cade. This is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime. The venue for the War Relics and Gladiator Showcase was a coliseum of glass and steel suspended in the upper atmosphere of the station's central dome. It was designed to overwhelm. Tiers of plush seating spiraled upward, filled with the galaxy's elite, aristocrats in gravity-defying gowns, corporate warlords with cybernetic eyes, and tourists eager for a taste of authorized brutality. Hovering drones buzzed through the air like angry wasps, streaming live feeds to the holoscreens that dominated the center of the arena. The lighting was strobe-fast and aggressive, painting the audience in alternating washes of blood red and imperial gold. Cade sat next to Jax in the mid-tier section, feeling woefully underdressed in his scuffed jacket. He nursed a drink that tasted like battery acid and regret, watching the spectacle with a grim expression. Ladies, gentlemen, and sentient citizens of the Empire, the host bellowed. His voice was amplified to boom from every speaker, vibrating in Cade's chest. He stood on a floating platform in the center of the arena, wearing a suit of crushed velvet and a smile that looked surgically attached. Welcome to the event of the cycle. Today we offer you not just labor, but history. The crowd roared. Cade swirled his drink, watching the bubbles rise. We have gathered the fiercest, the wildest, the most exotic remnants of the frontier insurrection, the host shouted, sweeping his arm toward the massive blast doors at the arena's edge. They fought against our glorious peace, but now they serve it. Limited editions. Folks, once these are gone, there are no more. The blast doors groaned open. The lights dimmed, focusing on the tunnel entrance. A low, resonant thrumming sound filled the air, the sound of heavy chains dragging across metal. The dragonkin emerged. Even Cade, who had seen nearly every species in the known sector, felt his breath hitch. They were magnificent and terrifying, standing nearly 7 feet tall. They were humanoids armored in natural scales that shifted color under the harsh lights, rippling from emerald to deep violet. Curved horns swept back from their brows like crowns of bone. They moved with a predatory fluidity, despite the heavy shock collars locked around their throats and the magnetic shackles binding their wrists. The crowd gasped, a sound that was half fear, half arousal. These were the monsters from the newsreels, the terrifying enemies that had burned Imperial fleets. Now, they were merchandise. "Look at the size of them," Jax whispered, tapping his datapad rapidly. "The labor output on just one of those beasts would be worth 50,000 a year." Cade did not answer. He was watching their eyes. They glowed with an internal bioluminescence, burning gold and amber. There was no fear in those eyes, only a simmering, ancient rage. At the front of the line walked a figure that commanded the silence of the entire arena. She was taller than the others, her scales an iridescent kaleidoscope of twilight blues and silvers. Her horns were etched with intricate carvings, scars of rank and ritual. She walked with her head high, ignoring the jeers of the crowd, moving as if the chains were royal jewelry rather than bonds of servitude. A long, jagged scar ran down the left side of her face, cutting through the scales but failing to mar her beauty. Instead, it made her look dangerous, unbreakable. "And here she is," the host screamed, his platform lowering closer to the prisoners. "The nightmare of the 7th sector, the butcher of the Black Moon. I give you Sarakith, the legendary dragon woman warrior." The screens above magnified her face. Cade saw the cold contempt in her expression. She looked at the screaming audience not as captors, but as insects buzzing before a storm. She was the last field commander of the resistance to be taken alive. The host continued, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. "The government tells us her fleet voluntarily surrendered after a fair and open trial proved the error of their ways. A true testament to imperial justice." Cade shifted in his seat. Two high-ranking naval officers were sitting in the row directly in front of him, their uniforms crisp and laden with medals. "Voluntary surrender," one officer muttered to the other with a dark chuckle. "That is a rich one." "You saw the classified purge orders," the second officer whispered back, taking a sip of wine. "There was no trial. We glassed their lunar colonies and deleted the archives. These ones are just the leftovers we forgot to execute." Cade went still. He had heard rumors, everyone had, but hearing it confirmed so casually sent a chill down his spine. This was not justice. It was a cover-up on a galactic scale. Down in the arena, Sarakith stopped. Slowly, deliberately. She lifted her head. She scanned the crowd, her golden eyes piercing through the glare of the spotlights. For a second, her gaze locked onto Cade. It was an accident of geometry, a random intersection of sight lines, but Cade felt the impact of it like a physical blow. She did not sneer at him. She did not plead. She studied him, her pupils, vertical slits of burning light, dilated slightly. It was as if she was reading the hesitation in his posture, the disgust in the curl of his lip, the fact that he was the only human in the section not cheering. She saw him. The connection broke as the host clapped his hands. "Let us begin the bidding. We will start with the subordinates. Prime labor stock, broken in and ready for obedience." The auction became a blur of shouting and flashing numbers. The younger dragonkin, those who had walked behind Sarah, were brought forward. They looked terrified, their scales duller, their movements jerky with panic. Cade watched as a wealthy mining magnate bought a pair of twins for 60,000 credits. He saw a fashion designer buy a muscular male for 40,000, loudly discussing how his scales would look as a cloak. Then, they brought forward a young female dragonkin, barely out of adolescence. She was trembling violently, her eyes darting around the arena. "The bidding for this lot starts at 5,000, the host shouted. 10,000, a voice boomed from a private box. Cade looked up. The bidder was a notorious figure on the station, Baron Vex, a man known for his private zoos where the mortality rate was 100%. Vex leaned over the railing, licking his lips, his eyes fixed on the young girl. 12,000, another voice cried. 15,000, Vex countered immediately. I want that one. She looks fragile. I like to see how long they last. On the arena floor, Sarah Keith froze. She heard Vex's voice. She understood the tone. Her composure cracked. She lunged toward the young girl, her chains snapping taut. The shock collar around her neck flared with blue lightning. Sarah convulsed, her back arching, a guttural sound of pain ripping from her throat. She fell to one knee, smoke rising from her neck. But she did not stop reaching for the girl. The crowd laughed. It was a cruel braying sound. Look at that fire, the host joked, hovering safely out of reach. Feisty. But do not worry, folks, the voltage is dialed up to 11 today. Cade's hands curled into fists. His fingernails dug into his palms until the skin broke. This is sick, he muttered. Sit down, Jax hissed, noticing Cade's agitation. You are drawing attention. I do not care, Cade snapped. That is a child, Jax, and that man, Vex. He is going to torture her to death. That is the business, Jax said, though he looked away, uncomfortable. The auctioneer was distracted, laughing at a joke from the front row. The noise of the crowd dipped for a brief second as everyone took a breath to laugh again. In that silence, Sarah Keith raised her head. She was on her knees, her body trembling from the aftershocks of the voltage. She looked up at the stands, her eyes bypassing the nobles, the officers, and the wealthy sadists. She looked straight at the rough-edged man in the patched jacket who was not laughing. She leaned forward, her voice low and rough, amplified by the strange acoustics of the arena so that it seemed to whisper directly in Cade's ear. Please, buy us. Human, pleaded the legendary dragon woman warrior, her golden eyes blazing with a pride that refused to die even as she begged. The words hit Cade like a kinetic round. She was not begging for her life. She was looking at the young girl, then back at Cade. She was begging for her people. She was offering up her own pride, her own legend, to save a child from a monster. Cade looked at the screen. The current bid was 18,000 credits. He looked at his bank balance on his data pad. 27,412 credits. It was his retirement. It was the new engine for the Sunstrike. It was 10 years of scraping through garbage heaps and eating nutrient paste. If he bought them, he was supporting this system. He was becoming a slaver. But if he did not... Vex was grinning, raising his hand to bid again. 19,000! Vex shouted. Cade's heart hammered against his ribs. The heat of the moment flushed his skin. He felt a strange, terrifying pull, not just pity, but a magnetic attraction to the fierce, broken woman on the sand. She had trusted him. Out of thousands of people, she had picked him to carry this burden. To hell with it, Cade whispered. He stood up. 27,000, Cade shouted, his voice cracking slightly before finding its strength. The arena went silent, heads turned. Jax choked on his drink. Cade, Jax hissed. Are you insane? That is everything you have. Cade ignored him. He stared down at Vex. Vex scowled, looking at this nobody in a dirty jacket. Who is this trash? 28,000. Cade felt a cold sweat break out. He did not have 28,000. He was out. But he saw Sarah's eyes. She was watching him, her body tense, hope warring with despair. Cade stammered. He looked at the host. I bid 27,412 credits, and I am invoking the bulk hazard clause. The host blinked. The what? Imperial Trade Regulation 7 Alpha. Cade lied, speaking fast and loud. channeling every ounce of confidence he used to hustle scrap dealers. It states that damaged military surplus deemed volatile can be purchased as a unified lot to prevent public safety risks. That woman, he pointed at Sarah, is clearly malfunctioning. She attacked the line. She is a danger to your buyers. I am offering to take the entire command unit, her and her 2 immediate subordinates, off your hands right now. Immediate transfer. Liability cleared. It was gibberish, legal nonsense, but Cade said it with the authority of a man who dealt in junk for a living. The host looked at the angry, smoking dragon woman. He looked at Vex, who was turning purple with rage. He looked at the restless crowd who wanted to see the next lot. The host checked his datapad. The command unit lot had a reserve price of 25,000. The stranger was offering more, and he was offering to take the dangerous, rebellious leader away before she caused more trouble. "Sold!" the host shouted, slamming his gavel down before Vex could object. "To the gentleman in the bomber jacket, for 27,412 credits." The crowd roared, half in confusion, half in excitement at the drama. Vex threw his goblet at the wall. Jack stared at Cade, his mouth hanging open. "You just bought the dragon lady. You just bought the most dangerous woman in the galaxy and her death squad. With your retirement fund." Cade slumped back into his seat, his hands shaking. "I know," Cade said, feeling the nausea of adrenaline crash over him. "I know." The holding corridor was a claustrophobic tunnel of gray steel and flickering fluorescent lights, smelling of industrial cleaner and fear. Cade stood by the heavy security door, waiting. His datapad pinged with a notification. Transaction complete. Balance, 0 credits. He was destitute. He owned 3 alien warriors and had no money to feed them. The door hissed open. 2 station guards shoved the dragonkin through, then backed away quickly, hands on their stun batons. "Here is your receipt, buddy," one guard sneered, tossing a data chip to Cade. "Good luck. You are going to need it." The guards retreated, sealing the door behind them. Cade was alone with them, up close. Sarakith was even more imposing. She towered over him, her iridescent scales shimmering in the harsh light. The heat radiating from her body was palpable, like standing next to a furnace. Her 2 subordinates, the young girl, whose name Cade later learned was Ryla, and a quiet, watchful male named Terran, stood behind her, shivering. Sarah took a step toward him. The chains around her wrists clinked softly, a sound that seemed deafening in the silence. She looked down at him. Her golden eyes were unreadable pools of ancient light. There was no gratitude in her face yet, only a wary, predatory assessment. She was waiting to see what kind of monster he was. Cade swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. He felt incredibly small. "I was not exactly planning to buy anyone today," Cade said, the joke falling out of his mouth awkwardly. Sarah stared at him. The silence stretched, tight as a bowstring. Then, slowly, the corner of her mouth twitched. It was not a smile. It was too sharp, too bitter for that. But it was an acknowledgement. "You are a fool, human," she said, her voice a low purr that vibrated in his bones. "But you are an interesting one." The air between them crackled. It was not just fear. It was a sudden electric jolt of recognition. 2 people who were alone in a universe that wanted to crush them had just collided. Cade met her gaze, refusing to look away. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get out of here." He turned and keyed the door to the docking bay, feeling her eyes burning into his back, sensing the weight of the chains he now held the key to, and the terrifying, beautiful trouble he had just invited into his life. The Transfer Processing Center of Vesper Crown was a masterclass in bureaucratic sterility. The walls were a soothing, aggressive white, designed to project cleanliness while scrubbing away the reality of what happened within them. Cade Ryland stood at a transparent aluminum counter, his knuckles white as he gripped a stylus. The air smelled of ozone and lavender sanitizer, a cloying attempt to mask the scent of fear that clung to the waiting benches. "Mr. Ryland," the clerk said, flashing a smile that did not reach his eyes. His uniform was impeccable, a sharp contrast to Cade's oil-stained jacket. "We have finalized the transfer of the assets. You are now the legal custodian of Lot 47 Alpha. Congratulations on your acquisition. It is rare for a private citizen to secure such high-value military surplus." Cade looked down at the digital contract glowing on the desk surface. It was dense with legalese, paragraphs of text scrolling by faster than the eye could track. He forced himself to focus, scrolling back up to the medical appendices. There, buried in the subclauses regarding liability and biological maintenance, two names kept repeating. One was the Imperial Naval Medical Corps. The other was Aegis Dyne. Cade tapped the screen. Why is a private security contractor listed as a co-administrator on their medical tags? The clerk blinked, his smile stiffening by a millimeter. Standard procedure for high-risk assets. Sir, Aegis Dyne manages the neural inhibitors and tracking firmware. It is for your safety. If the assets attempt to harm you, the firmware links directly to our grid. Cade felt a cold knot form in his stomach. It was not just a slave tag. It was a leash held by a mega corporation. He signed the document, his signature looking jagged and angry against the pristine digital field. "Done," Cade said, sliding the datapad back. "Excellent." The clerk tapped a command. "Release them to the secure transport bay. Have a pleasant day, citizen." Cade turned and walked out, his boots thudding heavily on the deck plates. Jax was waiting for him in the corridor, leaning against the wall and nervously checking his chrono. "You look like a man walking to his own execution," Jax said, falling into step beside him. "I feel like one," Cade muttered. "I just signed my life away. Jax. And for what? To play warden to three people who probably want to kill me." Jax laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Look at the bright side. You bought the most dangerous woman in the quadrant. If anyone tries to mug us in the docking bay, you can just unleash the dragon." "If she kills me," Cade said, stopping at the airlock to the transport bay, "you can have the ship." Jax opened his mouth to reply, but the airlock hissed open, revealing the trio of dragonkin standing behind a shimmering iso-chain barrier. Sarah Kith stood in the center, flanked by her two subordinates. The younger female, Ryla, was practically vibrating with rage, her claws flexing against the magnetic cuffs. The male, Terran, was still, his eyes darting around the corridor, assessing threats. Sarah looked at Cade. Her expression was unreadable, a mask of regal indifference that hid the fire he had seen in the arena. "Did you hear that?" Jax whispered, nudging Cade. "I get the ship." Sarah's gaze flicked to Jax. "On my world," she said, her voice smooth and cold as polished ice. "Jokes about death usually mean you are trying not to scream." Jax went pale and took a step back. "Right. Okay. I am going to go check the perimeter." He hurried off toward the docking clamps, leaving Cade alone with his new crew. Cade deactivated the iso-chain barrier. The field shimmered and vanished. "Let's go," Cade said, trying to sound authoritative and failing. "My ship is this way." They walked in silence through the docking tubes. The few dock workers they passed stopped and stared, whispering behind their hands. It was a procession of ghosts, the scruffy pilot and the three legends in chains. When they reached the Sunshrike, Cade felt a familiar pang of embarrassment. It was an old Corellian light freighter, shaped like a rusted arrowhead, with patched hull plating and a landing strut that groaned under its own weight. It was home, but it was not exactly a palace. "Behold the chariot," Cade muttered as the ramp lowered with a squeal of hydraulics. Sarah paused at the bottom of the ramp, looking up at the ship. Her golden eyes scanned the sensor arrays, the engine exhaust ports, and the weapon hardpoints. "Small," she noted, stepping onto the ramp. "It is cozy," Cade corrected. She tilted her head, listening to the idle hum of the reactor core deep inside the ship. "But the ion drives are military grade, oversized for this hull mass. You run fast, human." "I survive," Cade said. "Get inside." He led them through the main corridor, past the cramped galley and the mess of wires hanging from the ceiling where he had been rerouting power to the shields. He stopped at the heavy blast doors of the cargo bay. This was the part he had been dreading. He keyed the door open. The bay was empty, save for some crates of spare parts and a few deactivated service droids. It was clean, pressurized, and safe, but it was still a cage. "I need you to stay in here," Cade said, avoiding Sarah's eyes. Ryla snarled, stepping forward, the chains rattling. "You bought us to lock us in a box?" "I bought you to get you off that stage," Cade snapped, his patience fraying. "And until I figure out how to keep you from tearing my throat out or getting repossessed by the station authorities. This box is the safest place for you." Ryla looked ready to spit fire, but Sarah held up a hand. The younger warrior fell silent immediately, though her glare could have melted steel. Sarah stepped into the bay, her movements graceful despite the shackles. She turned to face Cade. "We will wait," she said. "Do not keep us waiting long." "Pilot?" Cade hit the door control. The heavy blast doors slid shut, sealing them in with a thud that echoed in the silence of the ship. He stood there for a moment, staring at the metal, feeling like the worst kind of hypocrite. He walked to the cockpit, slumped into the pilot's seat, and rubbed his face with his hands. Jack slid into the co-pilot seat a moment later, looking pale. "They are secure?" "Yeah," Cade said, firing up the pre-flight sequence. "They are secure." "Let's get the hell out of here," Jack said. "Before you buy a ranker." 3 hours later, the Sunshrike was drifting in deep space, holding position in the shadow of a mining moon to mask their signature. The station was a distant speck of light behind them. Cade sat on the floor of the corridor outside the cargo bay, a toolkit spread out beside him. He had opened the maintenance panel for the door's locking mechanism, not to reinforce it, but to bypass the audio filters. He tapped the viewport control. The blast shield over the small window in the door slid back. Sarah was standing right there. She had been waiting. She was close to the glass, so close her breath fogged the surface for a fleeting second. Her golden eyes locked onto his. Cade flinched, almost dropping his hydro spanner. "You are persistent," she said, her voice muffled slightly by the thick transparency. "I am trying to help," Cade said, standing up to face her. He felt ridiculous talking to her through a door, but he did not dare open it yet, not until he knew the truth. "Help," she repeated, testing the word like it was a foreign coin. "That is a word slavers use when they want gratitude for feeding you." "I am not a slaver," Cade said, stepping closer. The heat radiating from the door was palpable, even through inches of reinforced glass. He could feel the thermal output of her physiology. It was like standing next to a sun that had decided to take human shape. "I want to get those tags off you. I want to let you go." Sarah placed her hand against the glass. Her palm was broad, her fingers tipped with obsidian claws. The scales on her forearm shifted in the light, iridescent blue and violet. Cade instinctively raised his own hand, placing it on the glass opposite hers. His hand looked pale and fragile against hers. The contrast sent a jolt through him, a sudden, sharp awareness of her power and his vulnerability. "Why?" she asked. Her voice dropped, losing its mockery. "Why would a human ruin himself to buy 3 enemies?" "I saw your eyes," Cade admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "In the arena. You were not begging for yourself. You were begging for them." He nodded toward the back of the bay, where Ryla and Taryn were sitting on crates, watching. Sarah's gaze softened, just a fraction. But the hardness returned instantly. "Promises are wind. Pilot," she said. "I have heard them from admirals and politicians. They all say they want to help. Then they put us in chains. If you are lying to me, if you betray us." She leaned closer, her golden eyes burning. "I will tear this ship apart from the inside out. I will make you watch the vacuum take your air." Cade swallowed. His heart was hammering against his ribs, a frantic rhythm that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the proximity of her. He noticed the curve of her neck, the way the scales tapered into smooth, dark skin at her throat. He felt a sudden, irrational urge to open the door, just to remove the barrier between them. "I am not lying," Cade said. "Then prove it," Sarah challenged. "Unlock the tags." "I am trying," Cade said, stepping back and breaking the contact. "I am going to try right now." He hurried back to the cockpit, his skin tingling where his hand had rested against the glass. Cade hooked his primary slicing deck into the ship's medical manifest console. The screen was a chaotic waterfall of code. He had been a decent slicer in his youth. You had to be, to salvage military wrecks without triggering failsafes. But this encryption was on another level. "It is military grade," Cade muttered to himself, his fingers flying across the haptic keys. "But the architecture is old. I can bridge the signal." He found the node controlling the slave tags. It was dormant, pulsing with a low-level query signal. "If I can just loop the feedback," Cade thought, biting his lip. "Make the tag think it is still receiving the master signal from the station." He executed the command. The screen flashed green. Success. Then instantly, it turned a violent, flashing crimson. "Unauthorized access detected. Biometric mismatch. Signal beacon activated." "No, no, no!" Cade shouted, slamming his hand on the console to sever the connection. He ripped the cables out, but the damage was done. The screen faded to black, but a single red light on the dashboard blinked ominously. Jax poked his head into the cockpit, waking up from a nap. "What did you break?" "I tripped a silent alarm," Cade said, staring at the red light. "The tags. They are not just receivers. They are transponders. I just pinged our location to whoever holds the master key. Light years away, in a sleek obsidian office aboard the Aegis Dyne orbital headquarters. A notification window popped up on a holographic wall. A man in a pristine gray suit turned away from the window where he had been watching a nebula burn. He walked to the display. Asset 47 Alpha. Activation attempt detected. Sector 9. The man smiled. It was a cold, geometric expression. Mr. Ravel tapped his comms bead. "Recovery Team Epsilon. We have a ping on the Dragon. She is aboard a light freighter. Class unknown. Intercept and retrieve. Lethal force authorized?" the voice in his ear asked. "For the pilot? Absolutely," Ravel said. "But the asset must remain intact. We are not done with her yet." Back on the Sunshrike, the mood had shifted from tense to suffocating. Cade returned to the cargo bay door. "I failed," he said bluntly through the comms. "Inside." Ryla let out a harsh, barking laugh. "I told you, Commander, he is incompetent." Sarah did not laugh. She walked to the viewport. What happened? It is trapped, Cade explained, running a hand through his hair. It is linked to a remote server, Aegis Dyne. If I try to force it, the tags might execute their termination protocol. I can't risk it. So we are still slaves, Sarah said. And now you have rung the dinner bell for the wolves. Cade nodded grimly. Yeah, pretty much. Sarah sighed, a sound that rattled in her chest. She turned her back to the door and slid down to sit on the floor, leaning against the bulkhead. Tell me, human, she said, not looking at him. Do you know who I am? You are Sarah Kythe, Cade said, the resistance leader. I am the monster they tell your children about to make them behave, she corrected. I commanded the Third Fleet. We held the Molten Line for 2 years against your empire's dreadnoughts. We did not surrender. The news said, the news is a lie, Sarah interrupted, her voice hard. There was no surrender. There was a meeting, a peace talk. My own second in command. He wanted the war to end. He sold us. They jammed our sensors, boarded our flagship under a flag of truce, and gassed us in the conference room. When I woke up, I was in chains. She looked over her shoulder at Cade. They needed a victory, she said. So they turned me into a trophy. They stripped me of my rank, my name, and my dignity. They made me a gladiator so the galaxy could watch the great enemy dance for their amusement. That is why you hate being small, Cade said softly. Sarah turned fully, her eyes narrowing. What? In the arena, Cade said. You looked at the crowd like they were ants. And on the ship, you mocked it for being small. You think because I am just one guy, I don't matter. The Empire wins because people convince themselves they are too small to change the orbit of a star, Sarah said, and they keep their heads down. They buy their scrap metal. They say, I am just one man, what can I do? And while they sleep, whole worlds burn. The words stung. Cade felt the flush of shame creep up his neck. She was describing his entire life. Keep your head down. Survive. Don't get involved. I bought you, didn't I? Cade muttered. Sarah looked at him, her gaze penetrating. You bought a problem. Pilot. We will see if you have the spine to solve it. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently. The artificial gravity flickered, sending Cade stumbling into the wall. The red alert klaxon began to wail. Jax's voice screamed over the intercom. Cade, we have company. Gunship. Port side. It is Aegis Dyne. Cade scrambled toward the cockpit, shouting back at the door. Sit tight. Inside the cargo bay. Ryla pulled at her chains. Let us out. We can fight. No, Cade yelled. He threw himself into the pilot's seat. The viewport was filled with the aggressive, angular shape of a corporate interceptor. Green plasma bolts were already strafing the Sunstrike's shields. Shields at 60%, Jax yelled. They are locking missiles. Cade grabbed the yoke, throwing the freighter into a corkscrew roll. The ship groaned, metal screaming under the stress. I can't shake them, Cade gritted out. They are faster than us. A plasma bolt clipped the starboard engine. The ship shuddered, and the lights flickered.
This is crazy.
We are going to die, Jax helpfully supplied. Cade looked at the weapon controls. The Sunstrike had rear turrets, but they were manual targeting only. He couldn't fly and shoot at the same time. Jax was useless in a gunnery seat. He would probably shoot their own solar panels. He had one option. It was stupid. It was suicidal. Jax, take the helm, Cade shouted, unbuckling. What? Jax shrieked. I can't fly this brick. Just keep us moving unpredictable, Cade ordered. He sprinted out of the cockpit, down the corridor, and skidded to a halt at the cargo bay door. He punched the release code. The blast doors hissed open. Sarah was already standing there, waiting. I need a gunner, Cade yelled over the klaxons. Ryla lunged forward, teeth bared, but Sarah was faster. She shoved Ryla back. "Unshackle my hands," Sarah commanded. Cade didn't hesitate. He pulled the magnetic key from his belt and swiped it over her wrist cuffs. The magnets disengaged with a snap. Sarah rubbed her wrists, her eyes flashing. "Turret ladder is that way." Cade pointed. Sarah didn't run, she exploded into motion. She moved with a terrifying speed, a blur of scales and muscle. She vaulted up the ladder to the dorsal turret station. Cade scrambled up the ladder to the ventral turret. He strapped in, donning the headset. "Can you hear me?" "Loud and clear." "Pilot." Sarah's voice came over the comms. It was calm, focused, the voice of a commander. "They are coming around for an attack run on your 3 o'clock. "I see them," Cade said, gripping the controls. "Evade left, then brake hard," Sarah ordered. "Force them to overshoot." "Jacks, hard left, then full reverse thrusters," Cade shouted into the ship comms. "Are you crazy?" Jax screamed, but the ship lurched left. The Aegis-Dyne gunship followed, its plasma cannons chewing up the void where the Sunshrike had been. "Now!" Sarah barked. The Sunshrike slammed into reverse. The G-force pressed Cade into his seat. The corporate gunship, caught by its own momentum, shot past them, its belly exposed. "Fire!" Cade yelled. 2 streams of laser fire erupted from the Sunshrike. Cade's shots were wild, scattering across the enemy's shields, but Sarah's aim was surgical. Her turret tracked the gunship with unnatural precision. She hammered the enemy's engine intake. The gunship's shield flared and collapsed. Sarah didn't let up. She drilled a hole straight through the reactor housing. The enemy ship blossomed into a silent, fiery flower against the stars. "Target destroyed," Sarah said coolly. Cade slumped in his seat, breathing hard. "We got them." Cade climbed down from the turret well, his legs shaking from the adrenaline dump. He met Sarah in the narrow corridor connecting the gunnery stations. The lighting was dim here, the red alert strobes casting long, dancing shadows. Sarah stood there, her chest heaving slightly. The exertion had flushed her scales with a deeper, vibrant violet hue. Her eyes were bright, the pupil slits blown wide. "Nice shooting," Cade breathed, leaning against the bulkhead for support. "Standard deflection maneuver," Sarah said, though her voice lacked its usual bite. "You fly well for a scavenger." Cade laughed, a breathless sound. "I try." He looked at her. Really looked at her. The chains were gone from her wrists, though the shock collar remained on her neck. She was free to kill him right now. She was a head taller than him, powerful enough to snap his spine with one hand. But she wasn't attacking. She was staring at him, her gaze dropping to his chest where his heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. She took a step closer. The corridor was too narrow. There was nowhere to retreat. She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest. She didn't touch him with her claws, but laid her palm flat against his jacket, right over his heart. "Your pulse is rapid," she murmured. "Fear?" Cade shook his head, unable to speak. It wasn't just fear. Sarah looked up, meeting his eyes. The space between them seemed to vanish. Cade could smell the scent of her, like wood smoke and ozone. He could feel the heat radiating from her body, a physical wave of warmth that made his skin prickle. For a moment, neither of them moved. The violence of the battle had stripped away the social barriers, leaving only 2 living things in the dark, high on survival. Cade felt a magnetic pull, a terrifying desire to lean into her warmth. Sarah's eyes searched his face, confusion warring with instinct. Her hand tightened slightly on his jacket, pulling him a fraction of an inch closer. Her lips parted. Then, she blinked. The moment shattered. She pulled her hand back as if she had been burned. She stepped back, her expression closing off like a shutter. "You should lock us back up." "Pilot," she said, her voice rough. "Before I remember that I am a soldier and you are the enemy." Cade nodded, his throat dry. "Yeah. Right. Later, after the ship was stabilized and the Dragonkin were returned to the cargo bay, this time with the door unlocked. A silent gesture of trust, Cade brought them ration packs. Ryla was sitting on a crate, chewing on a protein bar with aggressive enthusiasm. She looked from Sarah to Cade, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "So," Ryla said, her mouth full, "you and the human were in the hallway for a long time." "Commander," Sarah was cleaning her claws with a rag, her back stiff. "We were debriefing." Ryla snorted. "Is that what they call it now? Did you plan to mate with him or just eat him?" Sarah snarled, a low, guttural sound. "Ryla!" Cade choked on his own breath. Ryla grinned, showing too many teeth. "I am just asking. Your neck scales are flushed. Commander, that only happens during battle. Or rut." Sarah stood up, the rag bursting into flames in her hand from a sudden spike in her body heat. She threw the burning rag to the floor and stomped it out. "One more word," Sarah warned, her voice dangerously low, "and you will spend the rest of the voyage in the airlock." Ryla held up her hands in mock surrender, but she winked at Terran, who was hiding a smile behind his hand. Cade cleared his throat, his face burning. I'm going to go check the navigation." He retreated from the cargo bay, his heart doing flips. Back in the cockpit, Cade sat down and stared at the star charts. Jax was asleep again, snoring softly, snoring. Cade looked at the blinking red light of the slave tag alert. They couldn't go back to any civilized port. They were fugitives now, and he couldn't hack the tags himself. He needed a ghost. He pulled up the navigation computer and punched in a set of coordinates that hadn't been used in 10 years. They led to a sector of space that was officially listed as a hazardous. "Where are we going?" Jax mumbled, cracking one eye open. Cade engaged the hyperdrive. The stars stretched into lines of white fire. "To find a legend?" Cade said. "We are going to find a Lyra Voss." "Who?" Jax asked. "The only person crazy enough to help us," Cade replied. He looked back toward the cargo bay door. He wasn't just a pilot anymore. He wasn't just a scavenger. He was the man who had bought a war. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't going to run away from it. The Ghost Veil was less a region of space and more a graveyard of sensors. It was a sprawling, bruising nebula of ionized gas and particulate dust that smeared the stars into streaks of violet and bruised purple. Inside the cockpit of the Sunshrike, the proximity alarms had been reduced to a dull, rhythmic chirp, a heartbeat of warning that Cade Rylan had learned to ignore after the first 6 hours. Outside the viewport, the universe looked like a fever dream. Swirls of gas drifted past like spectral leviathans, obscuring the distant pinpricks of stable starlight. It was beautiful, in the way a poisonous flower was beautiful, and it was the perfect place to hide. Cade rubbed his eyes, feeling the grit of fatigue. They had been running for 3 days. He reached for the comms panel, hesitating for a second before keying the internal channel. "Cade here," he said, his voice raspy. "We are deep in the soup now. Sensors are glitching, so do not panic if the lights flicker. It is just the magnetic interference." "Copy that," came the reply. It was Terran's voice, calm and steady. Cade leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He had made a decision 12 hours ago that still felt like madness. He had moved them. The cargo bay was secure, but it was a cage. He could not claim to be saving them while keeping them treated like livestock. So, against Jax's frantic whispering and his own better judgment, Cade had opened the heavy blast doors. He had assigned the dragonkin to the spare crew quarters on the lower deck. He had even unlocked the weapon locker's secondary distinct access. Not the heavy ordnance, but enough small arms to make them feel less naked. It was a symbolic gesture. An olive branch made of trust and code. The door to the cockpit hissed open. Cade did not turn around. He could feel the change in air pressure, the sudden spike in temperature that signaled her arrival. Sarah Keith stepped inside. She moved with a silence that defied her size and the weight of the combat armor she had scavenged from his locker. "You drive this ship like a drunk beetle," she observed. Cade snorted, checking the nav computer. "Good morning to you too, Your Highness. And for the record, this is evasive drifting. If we fly in a straight line, the magnetic eddies will strip our shields." Sarah moved closer. She stood directly behind his pilot's chair. He could feel the heat radiating from her, a physical presence that rolled over his shoulders like a warm wave. It was distracting. It was terrifying. She leaned over, one hand resting on the back of his headrest. Her clawed finger tapped the leather near his ear. "You have unlocked the armory," she said. "Small arms only," Cade said, trying to focus on the swirling gas clouds ahead. "If we get boarded by pirates, I want you to be able to shoot back. And if we decide to shoot you," she asked. The question was light, almost teasing, but the threat undercurrent was real. "Then Jax gets the ship," Cade said, repeating his old joke, "and you will be stuck drifting in a nebula until you starve. I am the only one who knows the route through the veil." Sarah made a sound that might have been a chuckle. She looked out at the purple void. "It is like the dreaming sea on my homeworld," she murmured, "before the bombardment." Cade glanced at the reflection in the viewport. He saw her face, softened by the strange light of the nebula. The anger that usually defined her features had receded, replaced by a quiet, haunting sorrow. "We are going to fix it," Cade said. Sarah's expression hardened instantly. "Do not make promises you cannot keep, human. You are soft, you break easily." "I am tougher than I look," Cade retorted. Sarah looked down at him. Her golden eyes traced the line of his jaw, the dark circles under his eyes. "We shall see," she said. 2 hours later, Cade was knee-deep in the guts of a sub-panel in the engineering corridor. The magnetic interference had fried a power coupling, and if he did not bypass it, the life support scrubbers would fail. He was frustrated. The wires were microscopic and his hands were shaking. It was a tremor he had developed years ago, a souvenir from a crash landing that had rattled his nervous system. Usually, he could hide it. Today, with the stress of being a fugitive and the fatigue of the flight, his fingers refused to cooperate. "Damn it," he hissed, dropping the micro-welder for the third time. A shadow fell over him. "You are doing it wrong," a voice said. Cade looked up. Sarah was standing there, arms crossed. She was wearing a gray undershirt she must have found in the laundry, which stretched tight across her muscular frame. The casualness of it was jarring. "I have it under control," Cade muttered, reaching for the tool. Sarah crouched down. Her movement was fluid, her knees bending deeply as she settled beside him in the narrow corridor. The space was instantly crowded. "Your hands shake," she stated. "It is not fear. It is damage. It is just caffeine withdrawal." Cade lied. Sarah ignored him. She reached out and took the micro-welder from his hand. Her fingers were twice the size of his, tipped with razor-sharp obsidian claws that could tear through hull plating. Cade flinched instinctively. Sarah paused, her eyes flashing with a brief hurt, but she did not pull away. Instead, She turned her attention to the panel. With a delicacy that seemed impossible for a creature of her power, she used the very tip of her claw to separate the fused wires. She held the welder with absolute stability, fusing the connection in a single, clean motion. "There," she said, handing the tool back. Cade stared at the repaired coupling. "Thanks." Sarah remained crouched beside him. They were close enough that their shoulders brushed. The contact sent a jolt through Cade, a static shock that had nothing to do with the wiring. He looked at her arm, at the iridescent scales that formed a natural gauntlet over her skin. There was a long, jagged line of pale tissue running through the scales on her forearm. "Plasma lance?" Cade asked, gesturing to the scar. Sarah looked at it. "A boarding action. 7 years ago, I killed the man who gave it to me, but he left his mark." She turned her arm over, tracing the line. "We carry our history on our skin," she said. "Every scar is a lesson, a reminder of a mistake or a victory." She looked at Cade, her gaze piercing. "Where are yours, Cade Rylan? You have the eyes of a man who has been to war, but your skin is soft." Cade looked away, picking up a wrench just to have something to hold. "Not all scars are on the outside," he said quietly. Sarah went still. She studied his profile, the tension in his jaw, the way he focused too hard on the tool in his hand. "The invisible ones are the hardest to heal," she said softly. "They do not fade. They just grow deeper." Cade looked back at her. For a moment, the barrier between them, species, history, owner and slave, evaporated. He saw a woman who was tired of being strong. She saw a man who was tired of running. "You are not just a salvage pilot, are you?" she asked. Cade stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. "I am just a guy who bought a dragon," he said, deflecting with a grin that felt brittle. "Come on. Jax is probably trying to cook something, and I need to make sure he does not poison us." Sarah stood slowly, her eyes lingering on him. She did not press him. But the connection remained, a fragile thread woven in the dark. The sunstrike hit a pocket of gravimetric distortion without warning. Cade was walking down the main corridor, carrying a stack of data pads. Sarah was coming the other way. The ship lurched violently to port, the artificial gravity compensators groaning as they tried to catch up. The deck tilted at a 45-degree angle. "Whoa!" Cade yelled, losing his footing. He slid down the tilted deck, arms flailing. Sarah braced herself, digging her claws into the wall paneling to anchor herself. As Cade slid past, she reached out and grabbed him, her arm hooked around his waist, hauling him up. The momentum swung them both around, slamming them against the bulkhead. The gravity stabilizer kicked back in with a deafening thud, righting the ship instantly. The sudden shift threw them together. Cade crashed into her, his chest pressing flat against hers. Sarah's back was pinned to the wall. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Cade was overwhelmed by the sensory details of her, the smell of ozone and wood smoke, the hardness of the scales on her shoulders, contrasting with the surprising softness of the skin at her throat. The heat, God, the heat that radiated from her core, soaking into his clothes. Sarah had gone rigid. Her hands were on his arms, gripping him to steady them both. Her claws were retracted, her palms warm and strong. Cade looked up. Her face was inches from his. He could see the intricate flecks of amber in her golden irises. He could feel her breath, quick and shallow, washing over his face. Neither of them moved. The logical thing to do was to step back, to apologize, to make a joke, but Cade could not move. His body betrayed him, responding to the proximity with a surge of adrenaline and something darker, heavier. He felt the powerful lines of her body against his, the rise and fall of her chest. Sarah's pupils dilated. She looked at his mouth, then back up to his eyes. Her grip on his arms tightened, not painful, but possessive. A low sound rumbled in her throat, not a growl, but a vibration that Cade felt in his own chest. It was electric. It was terrifying. It was the realization that the monster he had bought was a woman, and that he wanted her with a sudden, fierce intensity that defied all logic. "Sarah?" Cade whispered. She leaned in, just a fraction. Her gaze was intense, searching. She looked like she wanted to devour him or maybe save him. "Well, this is cozy." The voice shattered the moment like a hammer hitting glass. Cade and Sarah sprang apart, stumbling back from each other. Jax was standing at the end of the corridor, holding a half-eaten ration bar, grinning like a maniac. "I felt the bump," Jax said, chewing loudly. "Did not realize it was an interspecies collision." "You two want some privacy? I can go hide in the airlock." Sarah straightened her shirt, her face flushing a deep, angry violet. She turned a glare on Jax that could have stripped paint from the walls. "One day, little man," she hissed, "I will mistake you for a snack." She turned and marched away, her footsteps heavy and fast, disappearing into the forward section. Cade leaned against the wall, trying to slow his heart rate. He glared at Jax. "You have impeccable timing," Cade said. Jax shrugged. "I am a helper." "Seriously, though, Cade, be careful. She is a predator. You are... well, you are you." Cade pushed past him. "Just eat your ration bar." Jax. The hidden outpost was a hollowed-out asteroid drifting in the densest part of the nebula. It looked like just another rock until the sunstrike broadcast the encrypted clearance code Cade had dug up from his old life. A section of the rock face ground open, revealing a hangar bay lit by flickering yellow emergency lights. Cade guided the ship in, the landing struts clanging against the metal deck. "We are here," Cade announced over the comms. "Everyone, look sharp. Irreversible does not like surprises." They gathered at the loading ramp. Sarah, Ryla, and Terran were tense, their eyes scanning the hangar. Jax was checking his pistol. The ramp lowered. Waiting for them was a squad of armed droids and a single human woman. Elira Voss sat in a hover chair, her legs replaced by cybernetics from the knees down. She was old, her face a map of deep lines and sunspots, her hair a shock of white cropped short. She wore a faded admiral's coat with the insignia ripped off. She looked frail until you saw her eyes. They were hard as diamonds. "Cade Rylan," Elira rasped, her voice like grinding stones.
"You're welcome."
"I thought you were dead, or in prison. I missed you too."
Fuck.
"Elira," Cade said, walking down the ramp with his hands up. Elira's gaze shifted past him. She saw the dragonkin. Her eyes went wide, the color drained from her face. "By the void," she whispered. Sarah Keith stepped forward. She recognized the woman in the chair. The shock of recognition turned instantly into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "You," Sarah growled. The air in the hangar temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees.
Fuck. Can't really.
Sarah lunged. It happened so fast Cade barely registered it. 1 second she was standing still. The next she was a blur of motion.
Oh shit.
Ryla and Terran shouted, but Sarah was already halfway to the chair. "Stop!" Cade screamed, throwing himself in front of Sarah. He slammed into her, wrapping his arms around her waist, digging his boots into the deck. It was like trying to stop a charging train. She dragged him 3 feet, her claws extending, reaching for Elira's throat. "Get out of my way, human!" Sarah roared, her voice echoing in the vast hangar. "That is Elira Voss. She commanded the bombardment of the second moon. She killed thousands." Elira did not flinch. She sat in her chair, staring up at the raging dragon woman. I did, Illyra said calmly. Sarah howled, thrashing against Cade's grip. Cade grunted, losing his footing. Sarah, stop! We need her! Cade yelled, desperate. She is a butcher, Sarah screamed. She saved you, Illyra shouted back. The words hung in the air. Sarah stopped struggling. She stood there, chest heaving, Cade still clinging to her waist. What did you say? Sarah hissed. Illyra signaled the droids to stand down. She looked tired, so very tired. I commanded the fleet. Yes, Illyra said. And when the order came to target the civilian centers on the surface, I refused. I jammed the targeting computers. I bought your people 3 hours to evacuate the capital city. That is why they court-martialed me. That is why I am sitting in this rock instead of an admiral's office. Sarah stared at her. The rage was still there, but confusion was creeping in. You jammed the sensors? Sarah asked. Illyra nodded. It was not enough. I know it was not enough. But it was all I could do before they locked me out of the bridge. Cade slowly let go of Sarah. He stepped back, looking between the two women. We came for the truth. Illyra, Cade said, we found something. The surrender was faked. Illyra let out a bitter laugh. Faked? Boy, that is the tip of the iceberg. Come inside. I have things you need to see. Illyra's office was a cluttered mess of physical paper files and ancient data drives. It smelled of stale coffee and secrets. She projected a holographic map onto the table. It showed the Dragonkin homeworld, overlaid with red lines. The surrender was a play, Illyra explained. The Emperor needed the war to end, but he needed the Dragonkin to remain a threat in the public mind, a boogeyman to justify military spending. So, they staged the capture of the leadership. She tapped a key. A list of names scrolled by. Sarah saw her own name. Next to it was a destination code. Target, Aegis-Dine Research Array 9. Illyra read, Status, Live Subject. They did not just send you to prison, Illyra said, looking at Sarah. They sold you. The top commanders were shipped off record to corporate black sites. Aegis-Dine has been running experiments, psychological conditioning, stress testing. They are trying to figure out how to break you, so they can use the same techniques on other species. Sarah leaned against the table, her hands gripping the edge until the metal groaned. My people, she whispered. They think I abandoned them. They think I surrendered to save my own skin. That is the narrative. Illyra agreed. They turned you into a coward so your people would lose hope. And they turned you into a monster so the humans would keep hating you. Cade felt a sick feeling in his stomach. It was efficient. It was brilliant. It was evil. We have to stop it, Cade said. Illyra looked at him. How? You are one ship against an empire. We steal the proof, Cade said. The full archive. If we can get the unedited footage of the surrender, the records of the sales to Aegis-Dine, we can broadcast it. We can show the galaxy what really happened. Illyra sighed, rubbing her temples. You are talking about infiltrating a research array. Those things are fortresses. We have a dragon, Jax piped up from the corner. Illyra looked at Sarah. And what about you? Are you ready to die for a galaxy that hates you? Sarah looked at the map. She looked at the list of names, her friends, her squad mates, all listed as subjects. I am already dead to them, Sarah said quietly. I have nothing left to lose. Illyra stared at her for a long moment. Then, she reached into her desk and pulled out a data spike. I stayed silent for 10 years. Illyra said, I told myself I was surviving. I told myself I was too small to fight back. But truth without courage is just another ghost file. It sits on a drive and rots. She tossed the spike to Cade. This contains the clearance codes for Array 9. It is drifting in the outer rim. It is a data node. If the archives exist, they are there. Cade caught the spike. He felt the weight of it. Thank you, Cade said. Don't thank me yet, Elira muttered. You are going to walk into a slaughterhouse. The night before the launch, the Sunstrike was quiet. The hum of the reactor was a steady, soothing presence. Cade was in the lower maintenance bay, checking the seals on the pressure suits. The bay was dim, lit only by the work lights clamped to the benches. He heard the door open. Sarah walked in. She wasn't wearing armor. She was wearing a simple flight suit she had modified to fit her frame. She looked less like a legend and more like a person. You should be sleeping, she said. So should you, Cade replied, not looking up from the suit he was patching. Sarah leaned against the workbench. We leave in 5 hours. Yeah. Sarah picked up a hydro spanner, turning it over in her hands. What happens after, she asked. If we succeed, if we broadcast the truth. Cade stopped working. He looked at her. The galaxy explodes, probably. The Empire will try to spin it. But the truth will be out there. Your people will know you didn't betray them. And then, Sarah asked, where do I go? I am a soldier without an army, a leader without a people. You could go anywhere, Cade said. You could find a quiet rock. Start over. Sarah laughed, a harsh, short sound. I have no imagination for peace. Cade, I have been fighting since I was hatched. I do not know who I am if I am not holding a weapon. Cade put down the patch kit. He walked around the bench until he was standing in front of her. He looked up at her. She was formidable. Yes. But he saw the cracks now. He saw the fear that lived behind the golden fire. I want to meet her, Cade said softly. Sarah frowned. Who? The woman who isn't a weapon, Cade said. The one who likes to fix wires? The one who looks at nebulas and sees the sea? Sarah went still. Her breath hitched. She is weak, Sarah whispered. No, Cade said firmly. She is real. He reached out, his hand hesitating for a second before he cupped her elbow. Her skin was warm, the scales smooth under his thumb. I want to see who you are when you aren't forced to fight, Cade said. I think she is worth knowing. Sarah stared at him. Her eyes searched his face, looking for the lie, looking for the angle. She found only a raw, terrifying honesty. The air in the maintenance bay seemed to tighten, changing from the smell of oil to the scent of ozone and heat. Sarah leaned in. She moved slowly, giving him every chance to back away. Cade didn't move. He tilted his head up, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. She was so close. He could count the flecks of gold in her eyes. He could feel the heat of her body enveloping him. Sarah lowered her head. Her lips brushed against his forehead, a feather-light touch. Then she moved down, hovering inches from his mouth. Cade closed his eyes, leaning into the space between them. He wanted this. He wanted it more than he had wanted anything in years. Sarah's hand came up, cradling his jaw. Her claws were retracted, her touch gentle. I want to, she whispered against his lips. Then do it, Cade breathed. Sarah pulled back. She stepped away, breaking the contact. The loss of her warmth was a physical blow. Cade opened his eyes, blinking in the sudden cold. I can't, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Why? Cade asked, his voice raw. Because I can't afford to need you, she said. If I need you, if I let myself want this, I will not be able to do what needs to be done. I will hesitate. And in my world, hesitation is death. She looked at him one last time, her eyes filled with a desperate longing. "I am sorry, Cade." She turned and walked out of the bay, leaving him standing alone in the dim light, his skin still burning where she had touched him. 5 hours later, the Sunstrike detached from the asteroid base. The cockpit was silent. Cade sat in the pilot's seat, his face set in a grim mask. Sarah sat in the co-pilot seat, a permanent change they hadn't discussed but both accepted. She stared straight ahead. Ryla and Taryn manned the gunnery stations. Jax was monitoring the comms. Elira Voss remained on the rock, her part played. "Course set for Array 9, Cade said, his voice steady. Sarah nodded. "Engage." Cade pushed the throttle forward. The stars blurred into lines of light. They were hurtling toward the heart of the conspiracy, toward a fortress of secrets and lies. They were a broken crew, held together by a fragile hope and an unspoken desire that simmered beneath the surface. They did not know that across the sector. A notification was blinking on Mr. Ravel's screen. Target acquired, bounty active. They did not know they were flying into a trap, but as the hyperdrive kicked in, Cade glanced at Sarah, and she glanced at him. And in that look, there was an agreement. They would burn the sky down before they let the darkness win. Aegis Dine Research Array 9 hung in the blackness of the outer rim like a skeletal crown forged from titanium and malice. It was a sprawling, spidery construct, orbiting a dying dwarf star that cast long, sickly shadows across its hull. The station was sleek, designed with the terrifying minimalism of corporate efficiency, but beneath the smooth white paneling, Cade Ryland's sensors picked up the heat signatures of hidden railgun batteries and point defense turrets. The Sunstrike drifted toward the docking pylons, broadcasting the stolen clearance codes Elira Voss had provided. Inside the cockpit, the air was thick enough to chew. Cade's hands hovered over the yoke, sweat slicking his palms. "Keep your velocity constant," Sarah Keith murmured from the co-pilot seat. She was staring at the tactical display, reading the scrolling data with the intensity of a predator watching prey. They have 3 layers of particle shields, 2 squadrons of automated hunter-killers on standby in the hangars. If those codes fail, we have exactly 4 seconds of life expectancy. "You know just how to relax a guy," Cade muttered, forcing his voice to remain steady. "I am not here to relax you." "Pilot," Sarah replied, her eyes not leaving the screen. "I am here to make sure you do not get us vaporized." Cade keyed the comms. "Array 9 control. This is transport vessel Beta 4, transmitting clearance vector, requesting docking for unscheduled maintenance supply drop." There was a pause, a long, static-filled silence that stretched for 10 seconds. Cade held his breath. "Transport Beta 4, a bored voice crackled back. "Clearance codes verified. Proceed to Base 7. Do not deviate from the flight path, or automated defenses will engage." Cade let out a breath he felt like he had been holding since they left the nebula. "We are in. Don't get cocky." Jax's voice chirped from the comm station in the rear. "Getting in is the easy part. Getting out with the secrets of the Empire is where it gets tricky." The docking bay was a cavern of white light and polished steel. As the Sunstrike touched down, the team moved with practiced efficiency. They had gone over the plan a dozen times during the jump. "We split up here," Cade said, checking the charge on his stun pistol. "Ryla, Taryn, you handle physical security and loop the camera feeds and keep the corridor patrols off our backs. If you have to engage, do it quietly." Ryla grinned, checking the edge of a combat knife she had liberated from the ship's armory. "I am always quiet, human." Cade looked at her skeptically but turned to the others. "Jax, you are on remote overwatch with Elira back at the base. Keep the comms open but encrypted. If the alarm trips, you have the engines hot and the ramp down. And us? Sarah asked, adjusting the fit of her gray flight suit. We go to the heart of the beast, Cade said, the central data vault. They moved out, slipping through the maintenance hatches rather than the main airlocks. The interior of Array 9 was a jarring contrast to the gritty, lived-in feel of the Sunshrike. The corridors were blindingly white, sterile, and silent. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and antiseptic. Sarah looked violently out of place here. Her iridescent scales and horned silhouette were dark, jagged interruptions in the pristine geometry of the station. She moved like a ghost, her footsteps silent on the white deck plates, but Cade could feel the rage radiating off her. This was the machine that had eaten her people. They reached a heavy security door leading to the administrative sector. A biometric lock glowed red on the wall. Cade pulled out his slicing deck and connected a lead to the panel. "This is a Gen 3 genetic lock," he muttered, tapping commands. "It reads DNA from skin contact. I have to spoof it, but the encryption is nasty." He worked for a minute, sweat beading on his forehead. The lock refused to yield. "Come on," Cade whispered. "Work with me." He glanced at Sarah, who was watching the corridor behind them. "I could use some moral support here," Cade joked, trying to break the tension. "Maybe a kiss for luck?" Sarah turned slowly. She looked at him, her golden eyes unreadable. Then, she walked toward him. Cade froze. He had meant it as a deflection, a nervous quip to hide his stress. But Sarah didn't stop. She stepped into his personal space, crowding him against the wall. The heat of her body washed over him, smelling of wild smoke and something uniquely her. She leaned in, her face inches from his. He could see the pulse beating in her throat. "Luck is for the unprepared," she whispered, her voice a low purr that vibrated in his chest. She reached past him. Her hand brushed his cheek, not a caress, but a deliberate, heated contact that sent a jolt of electricity straight to his toes. She extended a single razor-sharp claw and jammed it into the side of the lock's casing. With an effortless twist of her wrist, she pried the faceplate off the lock, exposing the raw circuitry. "Bypass the reader," she commanded, leaning back and smirking at his flushed face. "Do not just tickle it." Cade cleared his throat, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm. "Right. Bypass. Good plan." He jammed his connector into the exposed port. The light turned green. The door hissed open. Sarah winked at him, a terrifying, playful gesture, and slipped through the door. Cade followed, trying to remember how to breathe. The central data vault was a mausoleum of information. It was a circular room, dimly lit by the blue pulse of server towers that stretched from floor to ceiling. The air here was freezing, kept chilled to protect the processing cores. Cade moved to the primary terminal. He slotted the decryption spike Alira had given him. "Injection started," Cade said, his voice hushed. "It is cutting through the firewalls." Screens around them flickered to life. Thousands of files began to scroll past, decoding in real time. At first, it was just logistics, shipping manifests, cargo weights. Then, the images started. "Oh God," Cade whispered. The screens filled with footage. It was unedited, raw, and high definition. Cade saw lines of dragonkin warriors, stripped of their armor, being herded into cargo containers. He saw medical labs where scientists in Aegis-Dyne coats were performing vivisections on living subjects to test pain thresholds. Sarah stood frozen. She was watching a screen to her left. It showed a re-education session. A young male dragonkin, strapped to a chair, eyes clamped open, being forced to watch flashing geometric patterns while a voice droned over a speaker. The text under the file read, Subject 89 Beta, memory wipe successful. Combat inhibition protocols active. They are erasing us, Sarah whispered. Her voice trembled, a sound Cade had never heard from her. They are not just killing us. They are hollowing us out. Cade scrolled deeper. He found a folder labeled Project, Pacification. He opened it. A map of the galaxy appeared. It highlighted 3 other sectors, home to 3 other species, the aquatic Nereids, the silicon-based Lithos, and the insectoid Vec. It is not just you, Cade said, his stomach churning. Look, they are using the Dragonkin as a beta test. They are perfecting the process. Once they figure out how to break you, they are going to do this to everyone. This is a template for galactic tyranny. Sarah did not answer. She was shaking. Her hands were clenched so tight that blood was welling up where her claws dug into her palms. Cade stepped away from the console. He walked over to her. Sarah, he said softly. She looked at him. Her eyes were wide, filled with a horror that no battle had ever instilled in her. I led them. She choked out, I told them to be strong, and they ended up here, in cages, in labs. She looked like she was about to shatter. The legend, the warrior, the monster, it all fell away, leaving just a person standing in the wreckage of her world. Cade reached out. He didn't think about it. He just gripped her shoulders. You didn't know, Cade said firmly. You couldn't have known. Sarah let out a sob, a ragged, broken sound. She took a step forward and collapsed against him. Cade caught her. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. It was an embrace born of desperation. Sarah buried her face in the crook of his neck, her body racking with tremors. Cade held her tight, his chin resting on the top of her head. He could feel the hard ridges of her horns, the smooth warmth of her scales, the solid muscle beneath the flight suit. It was intense. It was intimate. Their hearts were pounding against each other, a frantic double beat in the cold silence of the vault. Sarah's hands came up, curling into the back of his jacket. She gripped the fabric as if it were the only solid thing in the universe. She pressed closer, seeking his warmth, seeking to hide from the blue light of the screens. Cade breathed in the scent of her, smoke, ozone, and something softer, like rain on hot stone. For a moment, the horror of the room faded. There was only the heat of her body against his. He felt a sudden, fierce desire to pull her even closer, to strip away the layers of fabric and armor and scales that separated them. He wanted to kiss the grief away, to use his own body as a shield between her and the truth. Sarah pulled back slightly. She looked up at him. Her face was wet with tears, her golden eyes searching his. Cade, she whispered. Her hand moved up his back, her fingers tracing the line of his spine. The touch was possessive, hungry. They stared at each other, balanced on a razor's edge. The desire was there, thick and heavy in the air. It would be so easy to cross the line, to find comfort in the physical, but they didn't. They pulled back, just an inch. They were both stunned by the intensity of it, by how much they wanted it, and by the realization that this was not the place. We have to finish this, Cade said, his voice rough. For them? Sarah nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She took a deep breath, the warrior rebuilding herself piece by piece. Yes, she said. For them. Cade turned back to the console. The download was nearly complete. Wait, Cade said, frowning. What is this? He pointed to a highly encrypted folder at the root of the directory. It was labeled Legend Project. Sarah stepped up beside him. Open it. Cade ran the decryption spike. The folder popped open. Inside were files on Sarah, not just her capture, but her auction. Cade read the summary aloud. Objective: test public sentiment regarding the monetization of enemy combatant symbols. Subject: Sarah Keith, placed in high-visibility auction environment. Variables introduced: excessive cruelty, humiliation. He scrolled down. There was a section labeled Buyer Profiles. His own name was there, Cade Rylan. Status: watchlisted. Profile: low-level opportunist with latent moralistic tendencies. Probability of interference: moderate. Outcome: allowed to purchase subject to test remote tracking capabilities and insurgent networking. Cade felt the blood drain from his face. They let me buy you, he whispered. It was a setup. The whole thing. They wanted someone to take you. They wanted to see who would try to save you so they could track us back to the rest of the resistance. Sarah stared at the screen. Her eyes hardened into gold coins. I was not just a slave, she hissed. I was bait. Suddenly, the vault turned red. A siren began to wail, a deafening, pulsing scream. The blue lights of the server towers shifted to emergency crimson. Security breach. Lockdown initiated. On the main holoscreen, the data stream vanished. It was replaced by the face of a man. He was handsome in a generic, corporate way, with slicked back hair and a smile that looked like it had been focus grouped for maximum condescension. Mr. Ravel. Mr. Rylan, Ravel exclaimed, his voice booming through the vault. And the lovely Sarah Keith. So good of you to drop by. Cade grabbed the data spike, yanking it from the console. We have the files. We are leaving. Ravel chuckled. Oh, please. You have what I allowed you to have. Did you really think you could walk into my house without me knowing? I have been watching you since you spoofed the docking codes. Ravel leaned closer to the camera. Thank you for logging in. By the way, your biometric signature confirms your identity. Now I have legal probable cause to label you both as terrorists who attacked a peaceful research facility. The media is going to love this. The savage dragon and her human pet. Go to hell, Sarah snarled. I am afraid you are the ones going to hell, Ravel said. Security? Kill them. But try to leave the heads intact. I need them for the press release. The screen went black. The blast doors at the far end of the vault hissed open. A squad of Aegis Dyne security troopers poured in. They were wearing heavy black armor and carrying pulse rifles. Behind them hovered 3 combat drones. Move! Sarah screamed. She shoved Cade behind a bank of server towers just as the air filled with the sizzling snap of plasma fire. Sparks showered down on them. Cade fumbled for his stun pistol, but it looked pathetic against the heavy armor of the troopers. Sarah did not look pathetic. She let out a roar that shook the floor plates. She vaulted over the server bank, moving with a speed that defied physics. She was a whirlwind of violence. She ducked under a plasma bolt, grabbed a trooper by the helmet, and slammed him into the wall with enough force to crack the ceramite plating. She spun, her tail sweeping the legs out from another guard. Before he hit the ground, she had ripped the rifle from his hands and crushed the barrel with her bare grip. Cade popped up, firing his stunner. It was useless against the armor, but he aimed for the drones. He pulled a small device from his belt, a portable gravity distorter he used for moving heavy salvage. He armed it and threw it like a grenade. It landed in the middle of the drone formation. Pulse! Cade yelled. The device detonated, creating a localized gravity well. The 3 drones were sucked together with a screech of tearing metal, smashing into each other and exploding. Nice trick, Sarah shouted, throwing a trooper across the room. We have to get out of here, Cade yelled. He tapped his comms. Ryla, Terran, we are blown. Fall back to the ship. We are a little busy. Ryla's voice came back, strained and breathless. We have heavy resistance in the corridor. Terran is hit. What? Cade froze. He took a plasma round to the shoulder. I am fine, Ryla shouted. But we are pinned down. Cade looked at Sarah. She had just finished dismantling the last of the vault guards. She stood amidst the broken bodies, her chest heaving, her eyes wild. We go to them, Sarah said. Now. They sprinted out of the vault, into the red-lit corridors. The run back to the docking bay was a blur of chaos. They fought their way through 2 more squads. Sarah was a battering ram, clearing the path, while Cade used every dirty trick in his scavenger book, overloading light panels to blind enemies, hot-wiring blast doors to slam shut on pursuing drones. They found Ryla and Terran pinned down behind a cargo crate near the entrance to the hangar. Terran was clutching his shoulder, his scales scorched black. Ryla was firing wildly over the crate with a stolen rifle. Cade slid in beside them. Can you move? Terran grunted, nodding. It burns, but I can walk. We need a distraction, Sarah said, looking at the squad of 20 troopers blocking the hangar door. Cade looked at a conduit pipe running along the wall. It was labeled coolant, reactant core. I have an idea, Cade said, but we have to run fast. He pulled his laser cutter from his belt. Sarah, cover me. Sarah rose up, firing 2 rifles she had scavenged, 1 in each hand. The suppression fire forced the troopers to duck. Cade sliced through the conduit. A jet of superheated steam and coolant gas erupted into the corridor. It filled the hallway with a blinding, scalding fog. Go! Cade screamed. They sprinted into the fog. The troopers fired blindly, bolts sizzling past them. Cade grabbed Terran's good arm, helping him run. They burst out of the fog and into the hangar bay. But the path to the Sunstrike wasn't clear. A group of lab workers, scientists in white coats, were cowering near the airlock, blocking the path. They saw the dragonkin and screamed, scrambling back. Sarah stopped. She raised her rifle. These are the ones, she snarled. The ones who cut us open. She aimed at the huddle of terrified humans. No! Cade shouted. He grabbed the barrel of her rifle, shoving it up. The shot went wide, scorching the ceiling. Sarah turned on him, baring her teeth. They are monsters! Cade, they are unarmed! Cade yelled back. Look at them! Sarah! They are terrified! I do not care! Sarah roared. If you kill them, Cade said, gripping her arm, you prove Ravel right. You become the monster they say you are. Sarah trembled. She looked at the scientists, then at Cade. Terror breeds obedience, Cade said, echoing her words from days ago. But mercy? Mercy is rebellion. It breaks the cycle. He pulled a data chip from his pocket, a copy of the archive. He threw it at the feet of the lead scientist. Watch that, Cade commanded the shaking man. Watch what you were a part of, and tell the galaxy the truth. Sarah lowered the weapon. She stared at the scientists with cold contempt. Live, she hissed, and remember who spared you. They ran for the ship. Jax had the ramp down and the engines screaming. Get in! Get in! Jax yelled over the comms. I am reading a power surge in the core. Cade's coolant sabotage had done more than create a fog. It had destabilized the local reactor loop. The station shook violently. Debris began to fall from the ceiling. Cade and Sarah sprinted side by side, helping the wounded Terran up the ramp. As they hit the metal of the ramp, a massive explosion rocked the far side of the bay. The shockwave threw them forward when they scrambled into the airlock. Cade slammed the button. Punch it, Jax! Cade screamed. The Sunstrike roared, its thrusters firing blue-hot. The ship tore away from the docking clamp just as the hangar depressurized. They shot out into the void, leaving the crumbling, burning station behind them. Inside the cargo bay, they collapsed on the floor. Cade rolled onto his back, gasping for air. His lungs burned. His legs felt like jelly. Sarah sat up, wiping soot from her face. She looked at Cade. She started to laugh. It was a breathless, jagged sound, born of pure adrenaline and the absurdity of being alive. "We stole it," she rasped. "We actually stole it." Cade started laughing too. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the primary data spike. He held it up like a trophy. "We got the truth," he wheezed. Sarah looked at the spike, then at him. Her eyes were bright, fierce, and undeniably alive. "You are a madman." "Cade Rylan," she said, a smile breaking through the soot and sweat. "And you," Cade said, grinning back, "are a terrible influence." The ship banked hard, jumping to light speed, carrying them away from the fire and into a future that was darker, more dangerous, and more hopeful than either of them could have imagined. Vesper Crown had changed. When Cade Rylan had left the station a week ago, it had been a playground of neon excess and indifferent commerce. Now, returning under the cover of a stolen transponder ID, the station felt like a fortress under siege. The holographic billboards that once advertised dream stims and gladiator shows now flashed crimson alert bands and rotating 3D mugshots of the Sunstrike crew. Terrorists at large. The text scrolled in common and high imperial, wanted for the destruction of vital medical research, armed and extremely dangerous. The irony tasted like copper in Cade's mouth. They had brought back the truth, terabytes of it, evidence of genocide and slavery, but the Empire had louder speakers. "We are walking into a furnace," Jax muttered, pulling his hood lower as they navigated the steam-choked alleyways of the lower maintenance levels. "Keep moving," Cade said, his eyes scanning the shadows. "The local contact is just ahead." They were deep in the station's bowels, far from the glittering promenades. Here, the air recyclers rattled with a death rattle, and the corridors smelled of old coolant and desperation. Sarah Keith walked beside Cade, draped in a heavy scavenger's cloak that hid her horns and the iridescent gleam of her scales. But she could not hide the way she moved. Even in disguise, she possessed a lethal grace that made the local street thugs step aside and lower their eyes. They reached the rendezvous point, a decommissioned water filtration plant that had been repurposed by the underground. The heavy steel door creaked open. The room inside was a chaotic cavern of improvised tech. Cables snaked across the wet floor like vines, connecting stacks of stolen servers and comms arrays. The air was thick with the heat of running hardware and the murmur of 50 voices. When Cade and Sarah stepped into the light, the room went silent. Dozens of faces turned toward them. Humans, Twi'leks, heavy-browed laborers, and nervous hackers. But their eyes did not stay on Cade. They drifted, as if pulled by a magnetic force, to the tall figure beside him. Sarah lowered her hood. A collective intake of breath swept through the room. "It is her," someone whispered. "The dragon." A young woman, face tattooed with resistance glyphs, stepped forward, her hands trembling. "Commander Sarah Keith, we heard the rumors. We did not believe." She fell to her knees. Sarah flinched. She took a half step back, her hand instinctively going to the hilt of the blade at her belt. She looked at the kneeling woman not with pride, but with a sudden, sharp panic. "Get up," Sarah said, her voice harsh. The room erupted. People surged forward not to attack, but to touch the hem of her cloak, to ask for orders, to beg for salvation. They called her the Breaker of Chains, the Red Star, the Avenger. Cade saw the look in Sarah's eyes. It was the same look she had worn in the auction house, but flipped. There, she had been an object of hatred. Here, she was an object of worship. Both were cages. "Back off," Cade shouted, stepping between her and the crowd. "Give her space." A grizzled journalist named Harlan pushed through the mob. He was the one Elira had told them to find. "All of you, back to your stations," Harlan barked. "This is a war room, not a temple." The crowd reluctantly dispersed, though eyes kept lingering on Sarah like she was a holy relic. Harlan led them to a secluded back room, separated from the main hub by a thick plastic curtain. "You have the drive?" Harlan asked, wiping sweat from his bald head. Cade tapped his chest pocket. "Right here. But we need a signal boost. The Empire is jamming everything." "We can route it through the emergency buoys," Harlan said, "but it will take time to bypass the filters. Maybe 2 hours. Until then, you stay put. Aegis-Dine death squads are tearing the station apart looking for you." Harlan left to coordinate the hackers. Cade, Sarah, Jax, Ryla, Taryn, and Elira were left alone in the small, cluttered room. Ryla and Taryn immediately moved to guard the curtain. Jax collapsed onto a crate, exhausted. Elira sat in the corner, cleaning her pistol. Sarah stood in the center of the room, staring at a flickering hollow screen that showed a looping news clip of the destroyed research array. The headline read, "Savage Attack by Alien Extremists." Cade watched her. She was vibrating with tension, her shoulders tight, her tail twitching beneath the cloak. "I need air," Sarah said tightly. "There is no air, Sarah," Cade said gently. "We are underground." She turned on him, her eyes blazing. "Do not tell me what is real. Cade, I know where we are. We are in another box." She paced to the far end of the room, where a small ventilation fan rattled. Cade followed her. He stepped close, lowering his voice so the others wouldn't hear. "They love you out there," Cade said. "They do not know me," Sarah snapped. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of self-protection that looked wrong on a warrior of her stature. "They see a symbol. They see a weapon that breathes fire. They want a martyr. Cade, they want me to die for them so they can feel brave." "It is not just that," Cade said. "They see hope." "I am not hope," Sarah hissed. "I am tired. I am just tired." She leaned her forehead against the cool metal of the wall. Cade stood behind her. He wanted to reach out, but he hesitated. The air between them was charged, heavy with everything they hadn't said since the research array. "I didn't buy you to be a symbol," Cade said softly. Sarah went still. "Why did you?" she asked, not turning around. "You spent everything you had. You ruined your life. Why?" Cade looked at her back, the curve of her spine, the strength in her shoulders, the vulnerability in the way she held herself. "Because you looked lonely," Cade admitted. The truth felt naked and clumsy in the air. In the arena, amidst all that noise and hatred, you looked like the loneliest thing in the universe. And I looked at you, and I felt like I was looking in a mirror. Sarah turned slowly. Her golden eyes searched his face. She looked for the lie, the angle, the pity. She found none of it. "I have spent my whole life being something for someone else," Sarah whispered. "A soldier for the High Command, a monster for the Empire, a savior for the Resistance. I do not know what I am if I am not reflecting someone else's expectation." She took a step closer. "I am terrified." "Cade, of what? Aegis-Dine?" "No," she said. "I am terrified that you see me, just me, and I am terrified of how much I want that." Cade's breath hitched. The noise of the outer room faded into a dull hum. The flickering blue light of the hollow screens cast long, dancing shadows across Sarah's face, highlighting the sharp angles of her cheekbones and the intricate patterns of her scales. "I see you," Cade said, his voice rough with emotion. "I see the woman who fixes wires." I see the woman who spared the scientists. I see the person, not the legend. Sarah let out a shaky breath. She reached up, her hand trembling slightly. With the tip of one obsidian claw, she gently traced the line of a small scar on Cade's jaw, a souvenir from a bar fight years ago. The touch was agonizingly tender. It was a gesture of trust, placing a weapon against his skin and choosing softness. "You are a fool, Cade Rylan," she murmured. Cade raised his hand. He cupped the back of her neck. His thumb brushed over a ridge of scales just beneath her hairline. Sarah shivered. Her eyes fluttered shut, her head tilting back into his touch. A low sound, half purr, half sigh, vibrated in her throat. The barrier broke. Cade stepped in, closing the distance. Sarah met him. She grabbed the lapels of his jacket, pulling him down as he pulled her close. Their lips met. It was not a tentative first kiss. It was a collision. It was hungry, desperate, and fierce. It tasted of adrenaline and fear and a longing that had been building since the moment their eyes met across the auction block. Sarah kissed him like she fought, with total commitment. Her mouth was hot, demanding. Cade responded with equal force, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her tighter against him. He felt the hard lines of her armor beneath the flight suit, the powerful muscles of her back. She felt the frantic beat of his human heart against her chest, a rhythm that matched her own. They stumbled back, hitting the wall. Sarah made a noise of frustration, her hands roaming over his chest, his shoulders. She wanted to be closer than physics allowed. She wanted to tear off the layers between them, to feel skin on skin, to rewrite the trauma of her past with the reality of his touch. Cade. She breathed against his mouth, her voice wrecked. "Sarah." Cade gasped, his hands sliding down to her waist, gripping her tightly. For a moment, the war didn't exist. The conspiracy, the empire, the bounties, it all dissolved. There was only the heat of the small back room and the woman in his arms who was finally letting herself be held. Then, the world exploded. A deafening crump shook the building. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The lights died, replaced instantly by the harsh red strobe of emergency klaxons. Cade and Sarah broke apart, chests heaving, eyes wide. The plastic curtain was ripped away. Harlan stumbled in, blood streaming from a cut on his head. "They are here!" Harlan screamed. "Aegis Dine! They found us!" A canister crashed through the ventilation shaft Cade and Sarah had just been standing next to. It hit the floor with a metallic clang and began to hiss. "Gas!" Elira shouted. "Masks!" Thick, yellow smoke billowed into the room instantly. Cade coughed, his lungs seizing. It wasn't lethal toxin. It was localized nerve gas. His legs felt heavy, like they were turning to lead. He reached for Sarah. She was stumbling, one hand on the wall, her eyes streaming. The gas hit her physiology harder. Her high metabolism pumped it through her system faster. "We have to move!" Cade yelled, grabbing her arm. The main door to the safe house blew inward. Armored figures swarmed into the room, their movements precise and mechanical. "Secure the targets!" A voice boomed through a helmet amplifier. "Non-lethal, I want them alive!" Jax was firing his pistol blindly into the smoke. Ryla and Taryn were trying to drag Elira toward a hidden escape hatch in the floor. Cade dragged Sarah toward them. She was dead weight now, her legs giving out. "Come on, Sarah!" Cade grunted, hauling her up. She looked at him, her eyes unfocused. "Cade, I can't." Cade looked at the escape hatch. Ryla had it open. Taryn and Elira were sliding down. There wasn't time. The troopers were 10 feet away. Cade made a choice. He shoved Sarah toward Ryla. "Take her!" Cade screamed. Ryla grabbed Sarah by the harness of her flight suit. "No!" Sarah slurred, realizing what was happening. She swiped weakly at Cade. "Cade, no, go!" Cade roared. He turned back toward the troopers. He raised his stun pistol and fired, dropping the lead soldier. It was a suicide run, a distraction to buy them the 3 seconds they needed. "Jax, get them out!" Cade shouted. Jax looked at Cade, terror and realization warring in his face. Then he nodded once and jumped into the hatch after the dragonkin. Cade stood alone in the smoke. He fired again and again, until a heavy gauntlet slammed into the side of his head. The world spun. He hit the ground hard. A boot pressed onto his chest, pinning him. Through the haze of the gas and the ringing in his ears, he heard the hatch slam shut and lock. They were safe. "Target secured," a trooper said above him. Cade looked up at the black visor. He grinned, blood staining his teeth. "You guys are late," Cade mumbled. Then the darkness took him. Cade woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the taste of blood. He was sitting in a chair. No, he was strapped to a chair. His wrists and ankles were bound with magnetic cuffs. The room was white, blindingly, aggressively white. It was the same aesthetic as the research array, Aegis Dine corporate minimalism. He blinked, trying to clear the fog from his brain. His head throbbed in time with his heartbeat. Ah, Sleeping Beauty returns to the land of the living. Cade focused. Sitting across from him, legs crossed comfortably, was Director Ravel. Ravel looked immaculate. His suit was crisp, his hair perfect. He held a glass of water in one hand, condensation beating on the cool surface. "You look terrible." "Mr. Rylan," Ravel noted with a sympathetic frown. Cade tested his jaw. It wasn't broken, but it felt like it. "I have had worse dates," Cade rasped. "Usually with your mother." Ravel sighed, shaking his head. "Humor. The last refuge of the powerless. I expected more from the man who infiltrated Array 9. Ravel placed the water on a small table, just out of Cade's reach. "Let us skip the pleasantries," Ravel said. "You have something of mine. Or rather, you helped steal something of mine. The archive. I don't know what you are talking about." Cade lied. "We were just looking for the restroom." Ravel leaned forward. His eyes were cold, dead things. "You have the data, but here is the reality, Cade. Data is just noise. You plan to broadcast it? Go ahead. We will call it a deepfake. We will say it is AI-generated propaganda created by dragonkin terrorists to destabilize the economy. We have the media outlets. We have the politicians. We control the narrative." "Then why am I here?" Cade asked. "If you are so safe, why did you gas a hole in the ground to get me?" "Because," Ravel said, standing up and pacing, "for the lie to work perfectly. I need to destroy the credibility of the messenger." He pressed a button on the wall. A screen slid down. It showed footage of Sarah in the arena, edited to look even more savage. It showed her fighting in the research array, snarling at the camera. "Sarah Keith is a symbol," Ravel said, "a symbol of resistance. If she releases the data, some people might believe her. But if I can prove she is a bloodthirsty, unhinged animal, then the data becomes the ravings of a madwoman." Ravel turned to Cade. "That is where you come in?" "Me?" Cade asked. "I am just the pilot. You are the human," Ravel corrected. "You are the relatable victim. Here is the deal, Mr. Rylan. You give me the access codes to your ship. You tell me where they are hiding. In exchange, I wipe your criminal record. I give you 1,000,000 credits. And I guarantee that when we catch Sarah, her death will be quick." Cade stared at him. "And if I say no?" Ravel smiled. "Then we put you on trial. A live broadcast. We will torture you, break you, and make you read a confession saying that Sarah brainwashed you." We will make you tell the galaxy that she is a monster, and then we will execute you both. Ravel leaned in close, smelling of expensive cologne. Be smart, Cade. You are a scavenger. You know when to cut your losses. She is just an alien. She is not worth dying for. Cade looked at the water glass. He looked at Ravel. He thought about the back room, the way Sarah's hand had trembled when she touched his face, the way she had whispered that she was terrified of being seen. He thought about the mirror of loneliness. Cade chuckled. It started low, then built into a laugh that hurt his ribs. What is so funny? Ravel snapped. You, Cade said, looking Ravel in the eye. You corporate suits. You think everything is a transaction. You think you can buy loyalty. You think you can buy love. I am offering you your life, Ravel said. No, Cade said, his voice hardening into steel. You are offering me a leash, and I am done with leashes. He leaned forward as far as the straps allowed. You can kill me, Ravel. You can put me on every screen in the galaxy, but I will never give her up. And do you know why? Ravel waited, his jaw tightening. Because she is more human than you will ever be. Cade spat. Ravel stared at him for a long moment. Then, calmly, he picked up the glass of water and poured it onto the floor. Pity, Ravel said. He turned to the guard at the door. Prepare the neural stimulators and get the makeup team ready. We have a show to produce in the cramped cargo hold of a stolen transport shuttle. Sarah Keith was tearing the world apart. She had ripped a metal bench from the floor and hurled it across the room. She had clawed deep gouges into the bulkheads. She was pacing like a caged tiger, her breath coming in ragged, angry gasps. It is my fault, she roared, spinning on Illyra. I let my guard down. I let myself be weak. Sarah, stop, Illyra said from the pilot's seat. She sounded exhausted. I got him captured, Sarah screamed. He stayed behind because I was too slow. Because I was distracted. She slammed her fist into the wall. I should have never let him touch me. I should have never kissed him. It made me soft. Love is a poison, Illyra, it makes you hesitate. Illyra stood up. She walked over to Sarah. She looked small and frail next to the raging dragonkin, but she did not flinch. She slapped Sarah. The sound cracked through the shuttle like a whip. Sarah froze. She stared at the old woman, stunned. Stop it, Illyra commanded. You, Sarah whispered, her hand going to her cheek. You are acting like a child, Illyra said sternly. You think love made you weak? You think caring about him is what got him captured? Yes, Sarah cried. If I had been focused, if you had been focused on just the mission, you would have left him there to die, Illyra shouted back. The silence that followed was heavy. Illyra stepped closer. I told you once that I lost my soul to the cause, Illyra said, her voice dropping. I treated people like assets. I treated soldiers like numbers. And I ended up alone in a rock, hiding from my own ghosts. She poked Sarah in the chest. Cade did not sacrifice himself because you are weak. He did it because he loves you. And you are alive right now because you love him enough to fight for a future where you both exist. Sarah crumbled, the rage drained out of her, leaving only a vast, aching grief. She slid down the wall to the floor, burying her face in her hands. They have him. Illyra, she sobbed. Ravel has him. I know, Illyra said, kneeling beside her. And they are going to put him on trial. They are going to broadcast it to the whole empire. They are going to kill him, Sarah whispered. Not if we change the script, Illyra said. Sarah looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. What? Ravel wants a show, Illyra said, a dangerous light kindling in her eyes. He wants to show the galaxy a monster. Illyra pointed to the stolen data drive sitting on the console. We have the truth. But truth needs a transmitter. And Ravel is about to set up the biggest transmitter in the system for his trial. Sarah slowly understood. She wiped her face. He is going to broadcast the trial live, she said. Into every home, every ship, every holopad. Illyra nodded. If we can hijack that signal, if we can inject the archives directly into his feed, we force the galaxy to see. Sarah finished, but we can't just hack it from here, Jack said from the cockpit, his voice shaky. The encryption on a live Imperial feed is military grade. We need to be close. We need to be inside the arena. Sarah stood up. She walked to the viewport. She looked out at the station, the massive rotating ring of Vesper Crown. Somewhere in that city of light and lies, Cade was hurting. We are not just going to hack the feed, Sarah said. Her voice was no longer the voice of a victim. It was the voice of the legendary dragon woman warrior. We are going to crash the party. 2 hours later. Sarah sat alone in the rear compartment of the shuttle. She was preparing. She had stripped off the flight suit. She was putting on pieces of armor she had scavenged. A pauldron from a dead trooper. A bracer made from hull plating. It wasn't the ceremonial gold armor of the gladiator arena. It was a mosaic of scrap, mismatched and rough. She picked up a piece of polished metal she was using as a mirror. She looked at herself. She saw the horns that marked her as alien. She saw the iridescent scales that people paid thousands to own. She saw the scar on her face. For years, she had hated this face. She had hated the strength that made people fear her. She had hated the beauty that made people want to possess her. She thought of Cade. She thought of his thumb tracing her scales. She thought of him saying, I see the person. I am not a symbol, she whispered to the reflection. I am not a monster. She touched her lips, remembering the kiss. I am a woman in love, she said, the words feeling strange and powerful on her tongue. And I am going to burn their world down to get him back. She lowered the mirror. She picked up her weapon, a heavy mag rifle Ryla had stolen. She walked to the cockpit. Illyra, Jax, Ryla, Terran, they were all waiting. Are we ready? Sarah asked. Jax swallowed hard, checking his datapad. This is insane. We are going to die. Probably, Sarah said. But we are going to make it loud. She looked at the station looming ahead. Hang on. Cade, she whispered. I am coming. Pilot, she commanded. Take us in. The central arena of Vesper Crown had been transformed. Where once there was sand and blood for the amusement of the masses, there was now a stage set for a different kind of theater. The Empire did not just want to kill Cade, Rylan, and Jax, it wanted to erase them. Holographic banners, 5 stories tall, draped the spectator stands in shimmering imperial gold and crimson. They projected rotating symbols of the Aegis Dyne Corporation and the Imperial Peacekeeping Initiative. The seats were packed, a sea of faces illuminated by the harsh, artificial daylight of the arena floodlights. Millions more were watching via the neural net feeds, their eyes glued to screens across the sector. In the center of the arena, on a raised circular platform, Cade knelt. His wrists were shackled to a heavy magnetic post. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, his lips split. Beside him, Jax was similarly bound, looking smaller and more terrified than Cade had ever seen him. A spotlight hit them, blindingly white. Director Ravel stood on a podium overlooking the prisoners, his voice amplified to a godlike boom. Citizens of the Empire, Ravel shouted, spreading his arms. We gather today not for vengeance, but for justice. Before you sit the architects of the terror attack on Array 9, these men are not soldiers. They are anarchists. They are pawns of a violent alien ideology that seeks to destroy our way of life. Behind Ravel, a massive holoscreen played a montage. It showed the smoking ruins of the research array. It showed grainy edited footage of Cade attacking scientists. It showed Sarah Keith snarling at the camera, her eyes glowing with demonic red filters applied in post-production. The crowd booed, a sound like crashing waves. Cade spat a mouthful of blood onto the pristine white platform. "Nice production value," Cade rasped, his voice barely audible over the crowd. "But the script is garbage," Jax whimpered. "Cade, please shut up. They are going to execute us. They are going to execute us anyway." "Jax," Cade muttered, "might as well critique the show. Beneath the arena, in the labyrinth of service tunnels that smelled of sewage and ozone." Sarah Keith moved with the silence of a hunting cat. She was not alone. Ryla and Taryn flanked her, moving with grim determination. Elira Voss brought up the rear, her cybernetic legs humming softly as she interfaced with a portable slicing deck strapped to her chest. "We are under the main signal junction," Elira whispered. "This is the heartbeat of the broadcast." Sarah stopped. She checked the mag rifle in her hands. She adjusted the mismatched armor she had scavenged, a pauldron from a stormtrooper, a greave made of starship hull. She looked less like a general and more like a survivor. "How long?" Sarah asked. Elira connected a cable to a thick conduit running along the wall. "I need 3 minutes to bypass the encryption," Elira said. "Once I slot the drive, the signal override will be instantaneous. But the moment I do, every alarm in the station will scream." Sarah looked at Ryla and Taryn. "Hold this corridor," she commanded. "Buy us the time." Ryla grinned, checking the charge on her stolen plasma rifle. "We will buy you an eternity." "Commander." Sarah looked at the ceiling. She could hear the muffled roar of the crowd above. She could feel the vibration of Ravel's voice. "Hold on. Cade," she whispered. Up in the arena, the theater was reaching its climax. Ravel walked down the steps of the podium, approaching Cade. A drone hovered close, capturing the director's grave. Sorrowful expression. "Mr. Rylan," Ravel said, his voice dripping with faux compassion. "We know you were coerced. We know the dragonkin creature used its psychic influence to twist your mind." Cade looked up. "Psychic influence? That is a new one." Ravel ignored him, turning to the camera. "But the Empire is merciful," Ravel declared. "If this man confesses, if he admits his crimes and renounces the alien terrorist known as Sarah Keith, we will show leniency." A guard stepped forward, holding a datapad with a pre-written confession. "Read it," Ravel hissed, leaning in close so only Cade could hear. "Read it, or I will have them flay your friend alive right here." Cade looked at Jax. Jax was shaking, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. Cade looked at the datapad. The words swam before his eyes. "I, Cade Rylan, admit to being a traitor. Sarah Keith is a monster." He took the pad. The crowd went silent. Leaning forward, Cade cleared his throat. He looked directly into the drone's camera lens. "I have a confession," Cade said, his voice amplified by the mic Ravel held out. "I confess," Cade continued, his voice strengthening, "that director Ravel has terrible taste in suits." The crowd murmured, confused. Ravel's smile faltered. "And I confess," Cade shouted, "that the only monster in this arena is the man holding the microphone." Ravel pulled the mic away, his face twisting in fury. "Cut the feed! Kill him now!" Sarah's voice roared over the comms in Cade's ear. Below the floor, Elira slam-fired the data drive into the conduit. The massive holoscreen surrounding the arena flickered. The image of Ravel's face distorted, stretched, and vanished in a wash of static. A screech of audio feedback tore through the stadium, making thousands of people cover their ears. Then, the screens cleared. But it was not Ravel. It was the archive. The footage from the research array played on screens 5 stories high, unedited, raw. The crowd saw the voluntary surrender of the Dragonkin, saw them being gassed under a flag of truce. They saw the slave processing lines. They saw the vivisection labs. They saw the documents labeled Legend Project, detailing how the Empire staged auctions to manipulate public sentiment. They saw Sarah, bound in a chair, screaming as scientists drilled into her scales. The arena went deathly silent. The booing stopped. The jeering stopped. Ravel spun around, staring at the screens in horror. "Turn it off," he screamed. "Shut it down." Then, the main blast doors of the arena blew inward. Smoke billowed out, thick and dark. From the smoke, a figure emerged. Sarah Kith did not walk in chains this time. She walked with her head high, her golden eyes burning like twin suns. She wore her scavenged armor like regalia. She carried a rifle, but she held it low. She stepped into the light. The audience, who had been told she was a mindless beast, saw her pause. They saw her look up at the screen showing her torture, then down at the man responsible. She looked regal. She looked terrified. She looked undeniably, heartbreakingly distinct. She walked toward the platform. "Security!" Ravel shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at her. "Killer! Open fire!" A squad of Aegis-Dine troopers rushed from the perimeter, weapons raised. They opened fire. Red plasma bolts streaked across the arena. Sarah moved. She did not run for cover. She sprinted toward the stands. A stray volley of plasma fire went wide, heading straight for a group of civilians in the front row. A family with 2 children who were screaming. Sarah threw herself in front of them. She took the impacts on her shoulder and back armor. The force staggered her, scorching the metal, but she did not fall. She stood as a shield between the soldiers and the innocent. She returned fire, her aim surgical. She shot the weapons out of the troopers' hands. She shot the knee joints of their armor. She did not kill. She dismantled. The crowd watched in stunned disbelief. The monster was taking fire to save them. Cade saw his chance. The guard who had been holding the datapad was distracted, staring at the screens. Cade lashed out with his legs, sweeping the guard's feet. The man went down. Cade scrambled for the guard's belt, grabbing the magnetic key. "Jax! Wrist!" Cade yelled. He unlocked Jax's cuffs. Jax grabbed a stun baton from the fallen guard. "I can't believe we are doing this." Jax screamed, swinging the baton at an approaching trooper. Cade unlocked his own cuffs. He rubbed his wrists, grabbed the guard's pistol, and ran. He did not run for the exit. He ran for Sarah. She was pinned down near the barrier, suppressing a squad of 6 troopers. Cade slid into cover beside her behind a decorative stone pillar. "You are late!" Cade yelled over the roar of plasma fire. "Traffic was murder!" Sarah shouted back, not looking at him as she fired a precise shot that disabled a drone. "And I had to find a parking spot." She glanced at him. Her eyes were wild, fierce, and full of light. "You look terrible. Human," she said, noting his bruised face. "You should see the other guy." Cade grinned, though his side was burning from a graze. He got his feelings hurt. They fought back to back. It was a dance they had learned in the corridors of the research array, perfected in the fire of the rebellion. Cade covered her blind spots. Sarah drew the heavy fire. "Remember our vacation on the array?" Cade shouted, ducking a bolt. "Worst vacation ever," Sarah replied, reloading. "The service was terrible, and the room service tried to kill us," Cade added, dropping a trooper with a stun shot. The crowd was watching. The cameras were still rolling, broadcasting the terrorists cracking jokes, saving civilians and fighting with a desperate, chaotic synchronization that looked nothing like hate and everything like loyalty. Ravel saw it too. He saw the narrative crumbling. He saw the crowd beginning to murmur, not in anger at the dragon, but in confusion at the soldiers firing into the stands. Ravel ran to a fallen heavy weapons trooper. He grabbed a rotary plasma cannon. He did not aim at Cade. He did not aim at the crowd. He aimed at Sarah, who was exposed, turning to help a fallen Ryla who had just breached the arena floor. "Die, you filth!" Ravel screamed. Cade saw him. He saw the barrel spin up. He saw the line of fire. "Sarah!" Cade screamed. She turned, but she was too slow. Cade didn't think. He didn't calculate the odds. He didn't check his bank balance. He dove. He threw his body across the space between them, tackling Sarah just as Ravel pulled the trigger. The cannon roared. A bolt of superheated plasma meant for a dragon's heart slammed into Cade's side. The impact threw them both backward. Cade hit the sand. He didn't get up. "Cade!" The scream tore from Sarah's throat. It was not a battle cry. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated agony. She scrambled over to him. Cade was lying on his back, staring up at the arena lights. His shirt was already soaked in red. The smell of cauterized flesh and ozone was thick in the air. Sarah fell to her knees. She dropped her weapon. "No, no, no," she begged, her hands hovering over the wound, terrified to touch it. "Cade, look at me, look at me." Cade blinked, his eyes losing focus. "Hey," he whispered. His voice was a wet rattle. Sarah grabbed his face. She disregarded the cameras. She disregarded the soldiers who had stopped firing, stunned by the sudden silence that had fallen over the arena. She pressed her forehead against his. "Do not you dare," she sobbed, her tears mixing with the blood on his face. "Do not you dare leave me here alone, you promised." "I didn't promise." Cade wheezed, a faint bloody smile touching his lips. "I just said I'd try." "You cannot die," Sarah cried, her voice amplified by the silence, carrying to the microphones, carrying to the millions watching. "If you die, I will burn this universe down. I will break every star." Cade reached up. His hand was shaking. He touched her cheek, smearing blood on her scales. "Don't," he whispered. "Build something better." Sarah choked on a sob. "Stay with me," she pleaded. "Stay, and we will go anywhere. We will find a moon. We will be boring. We will be safe. Just stay." Cade looked at her. He saw the woman, not the warrior. "I never signed up to be the soft spot. And of a dragon goddess," he joked weakly. Then his eyes cleared for a second. He looked deep into her golden gaze. "I love you, Sarah, not the legend. You, the impossible, infuriating woman." His hand slipped from her face. His eyes drifted shut. "No!" Sarah screamed. She gathered him into her arms, pulling his limp body against her chest. She rocked him, burying her face in his neck, wailing with a grief that transcended species, a grief that broke the heart of everyone watching. The image froze on screens across the galaxy. The monster, weeping over the human who had saved her. Slowly, the sound of Ravel's laughter cut through the silence. "Pathetic," Ravel spat, standing over them with the smoking cannon, a tragedy for the ages. The pet dies for the master. Sarah went still. She stopped rocking. She laid Cade down gently on the sand. She stood up. She turned to face Ravel. Her face was void of emotion. The grief was gone, replaced by a cold, absolute zero. Her eyes were not burning, they were dead stars. Ravel raised the cannon. "Goodbye, asset." Sarah moved faster than thought. She sidestepped the blast. She closed the distance in a blur. She slapped the cannon aside, bending the barrel with her bare hand. She grabbed Ravel by the throat. She lifted him off the ground. Ravel clawed at her hand, his feet kicking in the air. "Do it!" Ravel choked out, grinning through his asphyxiation. "Kill me! Show them the monster! Prove me right!" The camera drone hovered close, zooming in on Sarah's face. The galaxy held its breath. They waited for the snap of the neck. They waited for the blood. Sarah's grip tightened. Her claws dug into his skin. She wanted to. Every cell in her body screamed to tear his head off. But she heard Cade's voice. Mercy is rebellion. Sarah leaned in. "No," she whispered. She threw Ravel to the ground. He landed hard, gasping for air, before he could recover. Sarah placed a heavy boot on his chest. She reached down and ripped the microphone from his lapel. She held it to his lips. "Speak," she commanded. Ravel wheezed, "Go to hell." Sarah applied pressure. Her claws extended, hovering millimeters from his eyes. "Tell them," she said, her voice ringing through the arena. "Tell them about the array. Tell them about the purge. Tell them about the lies." Ravel looked at the crowd. He looked at the troopers, who had lowered their weapons. He looked at the giant screens playing the footage of his own crimes. He looked at Sarah, and he saw that she would not give him the easy way out. She would not make him a martyr. Ravel stammered. "Louder!" Sarah roared. "I authorized the purge," Ravel screamed, breaking. "We faked the surrender. We sold them. It was all for profit. It was all a lie." The confession echoed across the station. Sarah stepped back. She looked at the camera drone. She did not roar. She did not pose. She simply pointed at Ravel, shivering in the dirt. "Take him," she said to the crowd. "He is yours." She turned her back on him. She fell to her knees beside Cade. "Medics!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Help him, please!" The galaxy did not change in a day, but the silence had been broken. Riots erupted on 50 worlds. The Aegis Dyne stock collapsed within hours. The Imperial Senate, faced with the undeniable footage and Ravel's confession, was forced to launch an independent inquiry to prevent a total uprising. The Dragonkin homeworld declared its independence, and for the first time in a decade, the orbital blockades were lifted. But Sarah cared about none of that. She cared about the beep of a biomonitor. 6 months later, the moon was called Ethelgard. It was a terraforming project that had been abandoned halfway through, leaving it a wild, verdant world of oversized ferns and teal-colored oceans. It was an off-the-book sanctuary for refugees, deserters, and broken things trying to heal. Cade Ryland sat in a wicker chair on a wooden deck, a blanket over his legs. He was thinner, and he moved with a stiffness that would likely never fully leave him. A long, pale scar ran up his side, a permanent reminder of the plasma bolt. He was watching the sunset, sipping a cup of bitter tea. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. "You are supposed to be resting," Sarah's voice scolded him. Cade smiled without turning around. "I am resting. I am aggressively resting." Sarah walked into view. She was wearing loose linen trousers and a tunic, no armor. She carried a basket of fruit from the orchard they had planted. She set the basket down and placed a hand on his forehead, checking his temperature. It was a habit she hadn't broken. "You look tired," she noted. "I am fine. Nurse Ratched," Cade teased. Sarah rolled her eyes, but her touch lingered on his face. She ran her thumb over his cheekbone. 6 months ago, she would have pulled away. Now, she leaned into him. She sat on the edge of his chair, careful of his injury. "Elira called," Sarah said. "The new council is drafting the Constitution. She wants to know if you want to be the Minister of Transportation." Cade laughed. "Me? A minister? I can barely fly straight. Tell her I am retired. I have a very important job here watching the grass grow. Sarah smiled. It was a real smile. Soft. Easy. I told her. She said, I told her we are busy building bridges, not thrones. Cade took her hand. He interlaced his fingers with hers. Her skin was rough. His was scarred. They fit together perfectly. It is peaceful, Cade said, looking at the twin moons rising in the twilight sky. Sarah looked at the horizon. She tightened her grip on his hand. It terrifies me, she admitted quietly. What does? The quiet, she said. I wake up every morning waiting for the siren. I wait for the cage to close. I look at you, and I am terrified that this is a dream. And I am going to wake up back in the auction block. Cade squeezed her hand. It is not a dream. Sarah looked at him. Her golden eyes were shimmering with unshed tears. I need you. Cade, she whispered. It is not tactical. It is not survival. I need you. And that scares me more than any gunship. Cade stood up. It was a slow, painful process, but he waved off her help. He wanted to stand on his own 2 feet for this. He turned to face her. He placed his hands on her waist. He felt the warmth of her body, the solid reality of her. He stepped close. Fear is good, Cade said softly. It means we have something to lose. He reached up and cupped her face. I am not going anywhere. He promised. I am yours. No tags, no contracts, just us. Sarah let out a shuddering breath. She leaned down. She kissed him. It was slow. It was thorough. It was a kiss that tasted of tea and sunset and survival. There was no desperation in it this time, only a deep, abiding hunger. It was a reclaiming. It was an oath spoken in silence. They stood there as the stars came out, wrapped in each other's arm. Below them, the lights of the settlement began to flicker on, small beacons of hope in the vast darkness. The Sunshrike sat on the landing pad nearby, its hull repaired, its engines cold. Once, she had stood on a stage and begged a stranger to buy her. Now, Sarah Keith stood on a balcony, free. Her arm was draped around Cade's shoulders, his arm around her waist. They were battered. They were scarred. They were imperfect. But they were together. And as they looked out at the strange, beautiful constellations of their new world, they knew that the real story wasn't the war they had won. It was the life they were about to build. Ready? Cade whispered, resting his head against her shoulder. Sarah smiled, pulling him closer. Ready, she said.